screen starts glowing, and the film starts rolling. You wanna be knowing what you might be in for. So give the show a listen and find out what you're missing. Put yourself in position for the in-ticket score.
Hey listeners, welcome to a very special and Christmassy episode of The Goods, a film podcast. This is a special one, and you know, all episodes are special, but this is extra super duper special because it's holiday and because we are recording in person, which happens only a couple times each year. The way that I just said that reminded me of the Beach Boys Christmas song where he sings, "Christmas comes this time each year." And Katie always makes fun of that lyric. It's like a weird thing to say. It comes this time each year. It's like, yeah, I mean, I guess like that's the way calendars work. But anyways, the point is that we are recording in person. And so we have me and Brian. Hi, Brian.
Hey, everybody. Cool Yule. Good to be with you again. Here in person for a special.
And then if you looked at the episode title, you probably also saw that we have a third person with us. We have a guest, and that is my brother, Mr. William Stalkup.
Hi, I'm here again. And I feel like every single episode I'm on has the prelude. It's like, oh, it's special because we're recording in person. Perhaps because frequently when I am going to come over, Dan's like, well, might as well invite Brian to complete the trio.
Yeah, because it feels weird. Like, they're talking about sending me back to the office. I work remote. They're talking about sending me back. But the problem is because we've been remote since COVID, a lot of people don't live locally. So right now our meetings are, everyone is remote. But if we go back into the office, either it's going to be we're sitting in our cube and we're all like on calls, or we meet in person, but then like half the people are remote. But the energy is weird if some of the people are remote and some of the people aren't. You can still do it though.
I agree. Yeah, it definitely would, like, it's possible, but I think especially if you're doing a conversation like this and you have two people there and one person not, there's a risk of, what did you say? Huh? When you,
yeah. You know, we hate weird energy here on this podcast. Devil's advocate, it's easier to separate the vocal tracks and manipulate them if people are located separately.
So we're getting off the topic here, and the topic is that we're calling this the Grinchisode. The Grinchisode. We're going to talk about 3 adaptations of the Dr. Seuss book, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which was released in 1957. And a mere 10 years later, the first animated special of this story was made. And there have subsequently been 2 notable feature-length adaptations of The Grinch. Oh, you know what I just thought of as I said that? Wasn't there like one of those horror, he's not public domain, but somebody made a public domain style horror cheap movie, like the Winnie the Pooh one or the Mickey Mouse one called like The Green Guy or The Green One or something like that.
I think I saw something about that in my reading for this week. One that we did not officially watch for our discussion is... So the 66 Grinch TV special kicked off like a little cinematic universe of Dr. Seuss TV specials, of which Grinch is the inaugural chapter and by far the best known. But they did a bunch of the other books, you know, Cat in the Hat, Lorax, Sneetches. But there's also like ones that were original to TV specials. And they did a Grinch sequel in the 70s called Halloween is Grinch Night.
That's right.
That one's off the table officially, but I'll probably shout it out some more.
And what about the third one? Where's the Grinch is the Cat in the Hat or something like that?
Oh, yeah, that was like their Avengers Endgame. That's when they start crossing over.
Did half of them vanish?
The snap.
I haven't actually seen any of those later
Sneetches
ones. Yeah.
I don't think so.
We also did not watch the seminal classic, The Christmas That Almost Wasn't But Was, featuring the Christmas
Oh
hobgoblins.
no, the Christmas hobgoblins.
Ah, they're like knocking over props.
They do this goofy dance.
He's been singing for 2 hours. Me and me and me and you and me.
Yeah, people who say that The Simpsons is only good up through season 9 must not have seen that episode.
I love that one.
Because that's a great one.
That sounded like a silo tipping over.
So anyways, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So we've talked about Dr. Seuss a couple of times on the pod. We did an episode on the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T, which is a classic in my book and Brian's book. And we also talked about one that is very relevant to the third of the 3 movies we're going to be talking about tonight, The Lorax, produced by Illumination, which I believe came before the one we're going to talk about tonight, because Illumination did a Grinch movie as well. And so, I mean, I think we're not unusual, at least me and Brian, I assume Will as well, not unusual in that we like Dr. Seuss.
It's not unusual
To like Dr. Seuss.
to like Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Dr. Seuss. I mean, I certainly read Dr. Seuss books as a child, and more recently, I definitely have read many Dr. Seuss books to your children, Dan, because I will come here around bedtime to play board games after his daughters have gone to bed. And occasionally, if I come early enough, they will ask me to read to the girls before bedtime, and I have read a few Dr. Seusses, including tonight I read How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So there you go.
So,
And yes, I've kind of always loved Dr. Seuss. I brought the ones we've previously covered to the table with, well, was the Lorax? I forget who officially assigned that, because we tacked on a top 5 like animation. No, it was top 5
movie songs.
Movie
I think.
songs.
But I think I picked it, but it was one
Okay.
that you had talked up in the past, so
Got
that's
it.
why I picked it.
Got it. So it was a product of synergy. But I think about a time in 12th grade when in English class we had an assignment to write a paper about a poet who was political. And I wrote a paper about Dr. Seuss and the Butter Battle Book, and I got a C on the paper. And I think that was totally bullshit, because it was a good paper and a very good choice of subject.
We may have had the same senior year English teacher. Who was your senior year English
Dr.
teacher?
Castaldo?
No. Who was the one who you wrote for like the Scholastic Award?
Oh, that was Mrs. Seavey.
She was
Did you have
my.
Mrs. Seavey?
I had her senior year.
Okay.
One thing I note about Dr. Seuss is, in this especially, I thought about this today, is that I really appreciate Dr. Seuss, but my appreciation skyrocketed tonight when I read How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and then immediately after that I read 2 other children's books to the girls. And there's such a rhythm and like a wonder to the way he puts sentences together that if you try to apply the same sort of lilting, sort of bouncing way of reading a book to a different children's book, it just does not work most of the time, because he had such a rhythm in his language that is pretty unique, I think, especially with the way, obviously, that he twists vocabulary.
Right. So a couple things about Dr. Seuss as a writer and a children's book author and illustrator. So a couple years ago, it might have been like the year that it might have been 2020, might have been 2021, I can't remember. But I made it a mission to read with my oldest daughter every Caldecott book honoree and award winner. And so the way that works is the Caldecott is awarded by, I think it's the American Library Association. It's one of like they've been doing it for years and years. It's kind of like the Newbery is the more famous one, but that one's about chapter books for kids. But the Caldecott is specifically picture books. So for when my kid was just a couple years old, that one was better. And I wanted to do it this way. First of all, there were at the time, it was like 360 had been selected as honorees or winners. So they choose a top 5. It's 5 most years. Some years it's 3 or 4. And then they select one winner. So there's out of the 5. So It goes back to the 30s. So you reading all of them, and that means you do about one a day when you have 360. So every day we were getting like a slice of some picture book from anywhere from almost 100 years ago up into the present day. And so I obviously I've never studied it academically, so I'm not like a real expert on it. But out of all of the topics that there are out there, picture book history is one that I'm a little stronger on than probably your average person. I did do a little bit of reading about Dr. Seuss and like how he kind of fit into that arc. And there was a couple things that were noteworthy. And one is that at the time, it was much more common for illustrations to be painterly, like not have like the cartoon sketch solid outlines that you see in Dr. Seuss books, and to be kind of more realistic-y style and like blended and mellow. They also tended to be very moralistic, like a lesson they were trying to teach the kid. And Dr. Seuss was kind of the key figure in the shift from like books designed to try to teach kids a lesson to like, let's try to write a book that a kid actually wants to read. And the measure of success will be, did the kid actually like reading it? So less morals, more disorder and chaos and silliness, which kids like. So like if you read, so his first book, he had 2 or 3 that were honorees. They're not the famous ones. I'll get to that in a second. Or not the most famous ones, I should say. They are ones that you've heard of. But like his very first book came out in the 30s, I think. It was
to think that I saw it on Mulberry Street.
Right. And then he did some others. He had If I Ran the Zoo. I remember that was definitely one. There's one about like a fishing pond or something.
McGilligan's Pool.
Yeah. And they're just a total contrast to anything that was getting at least selected by the Caldecotts in that time. And they hold up in part because, you know, they're pitched more at enjoyment, and also because like the surreality and all the Seussian stuff. Now, one thing Will talked about was the rhythm, and Dr. Seuss was known for a very particular meter.
Anapestic tetrameter.
You
That's
know
right.
a lot of Seuss, it seems like.
I have studied Seuss. Dan says he hasn't studied. I think you've studied, Dan. I think, speaking from a academia, humanities background, I think you've studied.
That counts?
Yeah.
Reading all of the picture books,
That's right.
That counts
You
enough?
consulted all the text.
Well,
There you go.
would you consider yourself a film scholar if all you had done is watched every Best Picture winner?
You're getting close at that point.
Yeah, I'd say you have enough to hold a conversation at the very least.
But anapestic tetrameter, also the meter of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas.
So what's notable about anapestic tetrameter is it is in 3s. So da-da-dum, da-da-dum. So that is in contrast to iambic, which is in da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. And part of the nature of this is, one, it's harder to write. It's like not as intuitive, which is why it's kind of fun to read because it feels playful.
Right. So a quick example of iambic pentameter would be, but soft what light through yonder window breaks.
when we compare that to, what's it called, the other one?
Anapestic tetrameter.
How about all the Who's down in Whoville like Christmas a lot? But
right.
And
the effect of this is that also it kind of has more forward momentum. It's like a galloping pace as opposed to a walking pace. But then, Seuss could have been an important, influential children's author just based on that. But then he really changed the game in 1957 with The Cat in the Hat, which kicked off the notion of an early reader book, which is basically, hey, if we're teaching our kids to read younger and younger, they need to have interesting things to read if they want to do it. And at that time, there were some of those, but they were like See Spot Run, Jane and Dick, like just very, very functional and not fun and dry. And so Dr. Seuss came in and wrote The Cat in the Hat. 200, I think it's either 125, I think 225 total words, all like pretty easy sight words with I think a couple of silly words mixed in. And it was like a smash success. And then Dr. Seuss spent the rest of his career making early reader type books. His line was called beginner books. So many of them he wrote himself, but he also recruited like-minded authors to write with him. And P.D. Eastman was a very famous one that wrote with him. He did a few of them, like the Are You My Mother, who didn't exactly mimic Seuss, but like wrote in a similar style.
Invoked Seuss.
Yeah. I'm imagining Dr. Seuss as like a 50s beat poet. Somebody who's really changing the game, a hip art type who would hang out at the cafe in Bucket of Blood.
That's kind of funny. But it's relevant in part because like many of his books that get most passed down to young readers, Cat in the Hat, Green Eggs and Ham, Hop on Pop.
One fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish.
They come from post Cat in the Hat, post 1957. But when he got like his awards recognition and first had his breakout, including getting recruited to make the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T, it was all before he did the Cat in the Hat. So when you look at like what he had actually output then, I mean, they're not to downplay those. And in some ways, I think those are kind of the coolest one because they have the richest world building and the longest stories. And you get to see his imagination most on like expansive display.
Yeah, and like the Bartholomew Cubbins books, which really seem like what most directly inspired 5,000 Fingers, where it's almost like a prose book.
But the ones that you are probably thinking of when you hear Dr. Seuss book come from his early reader phase, his beginner books phase, post 1957. But part of that enduring popularity has been, of course, that he has been much adapted. And we're here to talk about specifically The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, which I think is in conversation with some of the Christmas stories that we've spent a lot of time talking about here on the Goods, a film podcast. I mean, for starters, it's in very obvious and direct ways, like doing kind of a mirror image version of the basic Santa Claus story. But I also see elements of like a Christmas Carol, like you have a grump whose heart literally expands. I guess they say grows sizes in this, but I don't know, like in the realm of a Christmas grump who learns to see the beauty of human connection and celebrating the holiday spirit for the purpose of humanism and people together and caring for each other and loving each other.
Yeah, I really thought about that more this year than in the past. I mean, I'm sure I've thought of the Scrooge connection previously because I'm always thinking about Scrooge. But like the 2018 version especially seemed to play up the moral of you need a community.
Yeah, and the other thing, the one that most came to mind when I was examining it was not A Christmas Carol as much, though I see, of course, where you're getting with that. But it's in moral, in like explicit textual moral, it's very, very similar to A Charlie Brown Christmas. They both have that sort of mid-century anti-commercialism. It's not just about the tinsel and everything on the tree and the loud toys that get thrown away, but more about, you know, that's what Christmas is all about, Charlie Brown.
Right. All versions attack the commercialism.
Right.
Although Charlie Brown Christmas, of course, reads Bible verses directly.
Right. It's more explicitly Christian, whereas How the Grinch Stole Christmas is much more, if it is Christian, it's vaguely Christian in that it is about Christmas, and it's more explicitly about sort of the community and communion and coming together and singing a song.
Yeah,
and having
it
a feast.
features some dog Latin.
Yes.
Perhaps a mockery. I don't know.
I was reading about just on the Wikipedia page for the 1966 special, and they talked about making the song, was it Fahu Dores or whatever? And he was like, well, we're writing for kids, and what is the difference between Fahu Dores and Adeste Fidelis to somebody who doesn't know Latin, right? They both seem like, he said, this is Seussian Latin, so...
That's funny.
Yeah.
I always wondered about that. I like that. So I think I've said 1967. The premiere of the first adaptation we're going to be talking about was actually December 18th, 1966.
Since maybe one reason that Dan has 1967 on the brain is we just exchanged Christmas presents before we recorded the episode, and he gifted me a Dr. Dolittle playset from 1967 with all the original accoutrement included, mint in the box. I'm bowled over. Really good Christmas present. Thank you, Dan.
I'm glad, Brian. I'm glad you like it. You did make it easy for me because at one point you said, man, it would be cool to have some Dr. Dolittle swag. And I was like, I'm going to file that one away.
I try to drop little things like that.
The Dan had an idea, an awful idea. The Dan had a wonderful, awful idea.
Well, yeah, since Brian brought it up, I will detour us. How are we feeling holiday cheerful this Christmas? Are we feeling, is it a better or worse Christmas than normal, or is it just another Christmas?
I personally, there was a somber realization a couple of years ago when I decided that I was not the biggest fan of the Christmas season. So Dan and I obviously have a very large family, and as a result of that, it was lots of family gatherings and doing stuff. And I also often put off buying Christmas presents. So there's just a whole bunch of stuff to do in a short amount of time. And I think I often suffer from cabin fever and the idea of just like when the weather is sour, I also feel sour. And I made this when I lived in Japan alone. It became very clear to me that I need to be doing stuff or I get real down real fast. Like it'll take 2 or 3 days of me sitting at home doing nothing before I get just completely miserable. So I think just even through school and everything like that, when you're off for 2 weeks at a time, I tend to just get pretty bad. I don't know if it's seasonal depression or it's just I need to keep myself doing stuff or I'm going to start getting lazy and down and sad. And recently, obviously, this has been exacerbated by the fact that obviously Dan and mine's dad has passed away. And not only was Christmas time his favorite time of the year, his birthday was December 17th. And so I have a lot of very strong memories of my dad around Christmas time, and that wound is still fresh. So it's hard for me to get really into the Christmas traditions without, thinking about my dad. You try not to be miserable because it's the season of cheer, but it's hard when you are battling with my natural inclination to be sad around the Christmas season, plus all the external stimuli of grief and depression. Yeah.
Right. But I actually think that because it is the natural inclination to feel that way, because of the climate factor, the coldness, the darkness, that's the whole reason, the real reason perhaps for the season. Like back when it was Saturnalia or whatever pagan festival of Yule, it's like you need to be doing something, as you said, got to have something to look forward to. And it's not coming from the natural world. So you got to create something. You got to embrace community. You got to embrace survival and warmth and like the best aspects of the human experience. And just remind yourself that even in the darkness, those things endure.
Yeah, I find the Charlie Brown Christmas special, even though it climaxes with reading a Bible verse, I find it more broad than that, more evocative than merely keep Christ in Christmas. That'd be an interesting one to talk about. Maybe some year we'll do it. But to me, that kind of hits on the essence of, like Brian said, why we have a holiday. It's like you need to find this renewal. It's like it's almost the ground zero, or it's like when you're completely stripped down, and then like the entire fast moving world wearing you down till you're practically nothing. And then you begin the rejuvenation process just as the days start getting longer again. And that to me is kind of what Christmas is about. Last week we talked about how there's not really any reason that the years start on a certain time. Like you could have chosen literally any time, like why the middle of winter? But I was thinking a little bit about it. I actually kind of like it because right when the year starts is within a week or two of when the days are at their shortest and getting longer. So like a new year starts and the days are growing and growing and growing. And you could probably make other rationalizations about different times of the year. But for me, that there's something appealing in that. It's like, starting anew and building up from there.
Yeah. And I mean, the other obvious one is that it's like everything is dead and coming back to life.
Exactly.
And so it's a new start. But yeah, I don't necessarily disagree there. And I think when you look at all of the sort of the most beloved Christmas stories, whether it be A Christmas Carol or It's a Wonderful Life or The Grinch or Charlie Brown Christmas, they all sort of trade on this refutation of the really negative emotions and finding something more hopeful and pure in the joy of Christmas or the Christmas cheer. So like, I don't think that what I'm feeling, like my seasonal depression, if you want to call it that, is a unique thing at all. And
yeah,
I think
not to devalue it. I mean, it's like a lot of people feel it, and there's a reason for that, I think.
Right, and I think you're certainly right that when it comes down to it, that might be the reason that these holidays were celebrated midwinter at the beginning, because when else is it the best time to celebrate is when everybody is feeling bad. You got to find a reason to celebrate. Yeah.
I did some last-minute Christmas shopping today. As we sit down here and record, it's December 22nd, so pretty close to the big 2/5. And I've found over the years that Christmas shopping day, the feelings really change over the years. It's like, you go through the phase where you're a kid and up through maybe like early teens where it's like you're looking forward to getting stuff. And it's like your parents are maybe going to get you stuff or something. But then it's like you move into a phase where you're in college or whatever, and you're giving to your friends. And it's like you have this little circle, this little community that you're building. It's like, oh, I can participate and I can buy gifts and I can go to Spencer's Gifts and get the crass, funny stuff and like feel like a cool, independent young adult. And then it's like, then you move into a phase where you're in your 30s and it's like, well, now is really the time that you should be giving gifts to wives and children. And it's like, you're really responsible to be Santa Claus. And if you don't have that, it's like, wow, I feel really isolated right now. So it's a spectrum. And it's like, you gotta work as you get older on building the community and being that active gift giver participant.
Otherwise you end up as a 54-year-old naked green man in the mountains being like, I hate Christmas.
Well
or
said.
Explicitly not naked in 2018, but more on that later.
So yes, I guess one last thought is on Brian's thought, what he just said in terms of, I haven't really thought about it that way, but I kind of like that the giving of the gifts in some ways is like a mirror to where you are in life. And if you think about it, like giving a gift is in some ways like a physical manifestation of your connection to someone, which is not to say like, I don't believe that the kind and quality of a gift that you give someone is a direct barometer of how important they are to you or anything like that. But like the types of people that you're giving gifts for and like who you're thinking about and who you're spending time with and who your relationships are with, when you think about the gifts you're buying, it's that. And yeah, I mean, I see that in my life too. It's like I spend by far the most amount of time thinking about my kids and what we're going to get my kids. And then, I spent a lot of time thinking about what I'm going to get my wife. And then I was like, oh, I got extended family too. I got to get stuff for them. But those ones I usually just come up with an idea and order it. And so in some ways that kind of mirrors like what my relationships are in life. Oh, and friends, I think I spend a little bit of time thinking about what to get for friends too. And like, it's because they're important to me too, even if it's like not in the same structure as family and stuff. And so, yeah, I like that observation.
I feel like this is a fitting time for me to bring up, and Dan will appreciate this perhaps, but in our family, that is the Stalkup family, are with me and especially my siblings, so my 4 brothers and 1 sister. We had growing up a Christmas album. It was a compilation album. It was called A Very Special Christmas, which perhaps especially millennials or people that age and older might be familiar with these old CDs. They had like a sort of outline of a little dude on it, and they came in different colors. And I think we had A Very Special Christmas 3, which was the gold one. And on that, there is a song called Christmas by Blues Traveler. And Christmas by Blues Traveler, for whatever reason, became the theme song of Christmas in the Stalkup house. And in many ways, it is not a very sort of iconic Christmas song because it delves in these like... the first line of the song, for example, is, there comes a time for Christmas, but I really have to ask, if this is feeling merry, how much longer must it last? Like it's about these feelings of like trying to find joy in Christmas and searching for meaning in the festivities. And so, yeah, that song for me it remains the iconic Christmas song for me, even as I delve through these, the difficulty of going through Christmas. And I want to say, with regards to gift giving, I am someone, I like giving gifts, but I don't like giving obligatory gifts. I don't like those sort of having to find and make sure you get something good on that like third tier of the gift giving rung. And I really hate the feeling of there are two feelings I hate. One is opening a present in front of somebody who gave it to you, and the other is giving a present to somebody and watch them open it. Because I think both ends of that social interaction are extraordinarily awkward, because there's just a heavy scrutinization of like, oh, how did they react to it? Especially in a big, like if you've got a whole bunch of people around, like think of a birthday party. I always think it's really awkward if you're opening presents and you like one present more than the other, but you have to like make sure you're reacting to everything neutrally, and they're going to look at your reaction and be like, oh, he didn't like my present as much as somebody else's present. And the same thing, when you're giving something to somebody, you almost want to be like, oh, does he like it? But I wish all presents were just anonymously dropped at the doorstep, and you could like, all right, here's the thing. Nobody has to think about how much you liked it or anything like that. You can appreciate it and give me a note later if you want, but I just don't like the sort of, oh, what do you think kind of feeling.
That's really interesting. Maybe I lack that degree of empathy. I've never really worried about that. That's something to think
I don't
about.
think too much about it either, but I will say, Will, that one thing I've noticed is that it's out right now to actually open the gifts during a birthday party. So like at all of the kids' birthday parties we go to now, there's a spot where you kind of set the gifts aside. It's not anonymous, but it's basically what you're saying. And then you do the party. And then after everyone leaves, then the birthday kid opens the presents and writes thank you notes to them. So there's a couple reasons for that. It's like part of it is like exactly what you said. Part of it is it really sucks if you're a kid to see somebody getting all this cool stuff and you're not getting any. And
especially if you're a young kid.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard to have that. I think of Dudley from 37, but last year I had 38 or whatever it was.
Yeah. There was a Bluey episode about the kind of the philosophy of gift giving and how it's changed over time, like specifically at kids' parties, and like how does that unfold?
Interesting. There's a Bluey about everything, it seems.
At least as pertains to contemporary child rearing.
Aren't those episodes like 4 minutes long or something?
They're like 8 minutes.
They go by very fast.
Yeah. All right, but anyways, we're talking Grinch. Back on to the Grinchisode, the Grinch wavelength. So the first adaptation was a TV special that came out in 1966, the end of 1966, and it is pretty close to the book, but with some stuff added to it, and of course fleshed out with these visual musical sequences.
Yeah, it's like the book plus music. There were some small text differences because Dan pointed me to a archive.org upload of the original book, which I'm sure somewhere along the way I did read. It's pretty much word for word, but not quite. It was interesting to note where there were some differences.
And there are several editions. I kind of understand some of the Grinch's disdain for Whoville Christmas, because there's like 3-minute monologues of how they're making noises, and it just goes on and on with these ridiculous horns and games and stuff like that. So I had a little bit of sympathy for the Grinch there, having to deal with this, the echo of the Whoville's jubilations. And I think a lot of those editions of what sorts of noises they are making are not in the text. So they were some of the stuff added for the special to lengthen it from the 25-page early reader book to
64 pages, by the way.
Oh, there you go. 64 pages, early reader book to the full length of the 26-minute special or whatever it is.
But the 1966 one, yes, it's just short of a half hour. I think it's like 24 minutes or something like that. It is animated by Chuck Jones, who is one of the great American animators ever. Best known for his work on Looney Tunes. He also, especially later in his career, animated a couple of feature-length things or more expansive projects, let's say, including this one. This was later Chuck Jones. And, Chuck Jones was the signature Bugs Bunny guy, and he did a lot of the all-time great Looney Tunes shorts.
Did he do the Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner?
He did many of them, yes.
I got a lot of, especially Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner with a lot of the animation style in this, especially because they're like zooming around and stuff like that towards the back half.
And late Chuck Jones, I mean, he was always a great animator. One thing I've read, I follow a couple of animation heads online, but one thing I read is that later Chuck Jones really leaned into bright colors and like larger blocks of bright colors. And you really definitely see that in this animated special. He's also just the all-time master of facial expressions. And I don't know if there's a single piece of animation that does better with facial expressions than the Grinch animated special. It's a real masterclass of giving the Grinch a bunch of extremely expressive and just so many different ones. And they're all very ornate and over the top and fun to look at. And
the way the Grinch is green makes me feel like the way the ruby slippers are red.
I was going to use that exact metaphor, in part because in the original Dr. Seuss book, Grinch is white. He's not green. Just like in the original Wizard of Oz, Dorothy's slippers are gold and not red.
Silver.
But is it silver?
Silver slippers.
Yeah, gotcha. And it's like he wanted... it's like he's Chuck Jones in his late era. He wants to do big, bright colors. So let's not make him white. Let's make him green. And you can kind of get little bits of that in the book. It's like green and red are, of course, the two Christmas colors. But the book was printed in two-tone ink, I believe. I think it was, I wrote it down here, red and black. And so they didn't have green. But it's almost like, green is the opposite image. And it's kind of like implicitly green. At least that's the way. Maybe it's just me being used to the Grinch being green.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a green starburst around the Grinch on the cover or something like that, which leads you to believe he's green. And I think one thing is, importantly, he's credited as Ted Geisel. Dr. Seuss was, I believe, an executive producer or a producer on the 1966 special. So obviously Chuck Jones gets the credit for the animation, but I expect there was some consultation on the color of the Grinch when he came in. He said, so is this guy like white or a green gorilla?
We've been sending Grinch memes to each other this week, and there are some all-time great tweets. The thing about the Grinch, and this is like a theme that you'll see me explicate a little bit upon as we go here through the adaptations, is I don't think it gets better if you think about it more. I think it starts to fall apart a little bit. But that also makes for good humor, because if you overthink it and then you talk a little bit about it, you're like, yeah, that is kind of ridiculous. But there's a couple of funny ones. The one was, is Grinch his name, his species, or his job?
Yeah, I mean, we need to consider, is the Grinch a who? And there's actually some good dialogue in the 2000 version where Cindy Lou's dad says, well, he's a who. Well, not exactly a who. He's more of a what.
Well, he's like, and then Cindy Lou goes, a what? And he goes, exactly.
And then another tweet that ranks among my all-time favorites, and I think Brian was the one who found it and sent it, or maybe it was Will. But it's like a little. Do you have it up, Will?
Yeah,
we can just narrate it.
This is the tweet. It's from I don't know if this is the original, but Rajat Suresh says, Grinch, I would like to buy a dog. Pet store employee. Okay, are you a guy? Grinch. No, I am some sort of gorilla. Pet store employee. That is fine. Grinch. A green gorilla. Employee. Doesn't matter.
I just love how this sketches like a little scene of Grinch buying Max. And also like greeting someone, are you a guy?
And
I was going to start like dropping that in mid-conversation, and my wife pointed out, people are going to think you're being weird about gender if you do that, Dan. It's like, good point. Maybe I shouldn't do that.
the other thing that's funny is obviously that the Grinch doesn't know what he is. I am some sort of gorilla. A green gorilla? Maybe. I don't know.
I think of the Grinch, well, a little bit in the Shrek realm.
I agree.
Pop culture needed a green figure to endure.
Why?
In the consciousness.
Dan, you said it best yourself. Gotta have a goblin.
It might have been Brian who initially said that, I think.
Oh, yes.
That was about The Room, right?
But, well,
No, it was Mulholland Drive, I believe.
It's come through in a few times. I mean, we talked about it with Babylon, with Tobey Maguire.
Yeah. Boogie Nights? Was there a goblin in Boogie Nights?
No.
So, Babylon was Boogie Nights plus a goblin.
There you go.
All right, so I guess here is now we can just like talk through the story. I think everybody knows it, so we'll keep this pretty lightweight. But the 1967 one is a good way to do it because it really is pretty much just the story. So yes, Grinch, he lives near Whoville.
Yes, so I'm going to interject because I have such an admiration for the masterful concision of the 1966 film and the book. The original book, which opens, and we've said it a few times here off pod, but the Who's down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. The Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. That's the conflict in
There it is.
a couplet.
Grinch, he don't like Christmas, but the people near him do.
Yeah. And
In some ways, Will is Grinch.
I was gonna say this. Well, because remember in our chat up to this, I talked about how I was going to Grinchify myself. I was going to try and be more Grinchly on the way, and then we spent the first 20 minutes of this talking about my seasonal depression and not disdain for, but rather reticence towards some of the Christmas and gift giving and stuff like that. So maybe I am the Grinch of the Goods podcast. You might call me the Grood.
The Grood?
Yeah, it's like good, but with an R there. Like
Good
the
Grinch.
I don't know.
Isn't that the... Oh, it's Gru, the guy from the Minions.
Oh yeah, I mean this Grinch in 2018 is basically Gru, but anyway, we'll get there.
And I have a new theory of Grinch ontology this year, which is I suddenly realized that the Grinch is essentially Grendel from Beowulf.
Okay.
In that, so the Beowulf story is that you've got these Vikings, these Scandinavians who have these parties in the feasting hall, and it makes too much noise, and it annoys the monster who lives up in the icy Arctic hills and descends and causes chaos.
So would that make Cindy Lou Who Beowulf of this tale?
Maybe it's
She
a different,
slays the Grinch in many ways.
it's a different mode of conflict resolution.
Right.
But the text is almost one-to-one between the special and the book.
Without some of the more audacious additions of the literally audacious in that they make lots of noise in the 1966 one.
But anyways, so an important thing about the Grinch is that his heart is 2 sizes too small. And it's speculating why he doesn't like Christmas. And this is the narrator's contribution. It's got to be because his heart is 2 sizes too small, which is just a great burn. I just love it.
Could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. So, okay, this is where I want to ask guys, what is your background with the Grinch? The various versions. How often did you watch him? When did you watch him?
For me, I saw the 2001 growing up. I definitely saw the 1966 one on and off growing up, and that it was like a cable TV staple in the holiday season, much like a Charlie Brown Christmas. And while I don't think my family, especially my dad, had as much specific reverence for How the Grinch Stole Christmas 1966, I still saw it on and off.
You think that? I think Dad talked about it a lot.
Compared to Charlie Brown Christmas is what I'm specifically saying, which I feel like was it was like the pinnacle of the Christmas TV special. But I think they're all of those, like the claymation ones and the Grinch and Charlie Brown Christmas. I hold them all in a very similar place in my heart, in that they were on TV around the holiday season when I was a kid, and thus I have a sort of innate familiarity with them. And then the 2001 I probably saw a couple times as a kid, and I revisited it much later, probably when I was in college, maybe after I graduated college. And I've watched it several times since then. And then the 2018 one I watched for the first time 3 days ago in preparation for this pod.
I watch Grinch every year. I don't know when I started watching it every year. I definitely knew it well before I did, but now it is one of my annual traditions.
Yes. I was familiar with the 66 Grinch very early on. It made it onto my 100 film favorites list. So I love the 66 Grinch. And because of my reverence for the original special, I almost had a fear of the 2000 Jim Carrey film. Like, it just seemed so crass and so commercial and like adult and edgy, and maybe it didn't need to be. And so I just never watched it until last year. Was my very first time I'd ever watched it. And actually my experience watching it was more positive than I expected it to be, because I was like very averse, and we'll see where I ultimately land. But then the 2018 one, I didn't get around to watching until this week.
So in anticipation of all of the noise that the Who's will make celebrating Christmas, the Grinch comes up with an idea. In the animated special, he gets his like spark of inspiration when his dog Max has some snow fall on him in the shape of a Santa Claus beard.
I think this is definitely done in the 2001, and I think it's also done in 2018. I'm not 100% sure about the 2018. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think it's done in the 2018 one. But in the 2001, he definitely... Max goes, like, falls into a pile of snow, and he pulls him out and sees a snowy mustache and beard on him. So they keep that in the 2001, certainly.
Okay. I actually hadn't even clocked that. But different adaptations spend more time on the question of, is Santa real in these universes? Like, is Santa known? Is Santa present and like a thing that you could really run into?
Santa is explicitly real, and we see him in the 2001. Nobody has ever seen him in the 2018 one, and it's a little bit more ambiguous in the 1966 one.
I think that's fine, by the way.
Yeah.
I like the idea that Grinch is like, he's like the Antichrist version of Santa Claus. He's like the one who undoes it, regardless of whether Santa is real or Santa is not real. He's the anti-force of Santa magic.
Exactly. I mean, the Grinch is literally just a robber. So Will showed us the like Amazon listing that one of the top genres for this film is crime.
Yeah, I was looking up this movie. I think I was going to download it or something like that. And the second, it was like action was the first one and crime was the second one.
And I determined that it was alphabetical, so that kind of makes sense. But yeah, not what I would think of as first.
I wouldn't describe the Grinch as an action crime movie. Like if somebody's like, "What's the Grinch?" Like, oh, it's that an action crime movie. It's not what I would say. He lives in a mountain cave. The mountain is called Mount Crumpet. And he's just stewing. He's like, oh, the frickin' Who's and their goddamn Christmas. They're gonna be, it's gonna bounce off. I'm gonna be sipping my tea, and the noise is gonna come up here. It's the noise in particular that bugs him.
Yeah, I was reading that the Grinch is 53 years old. For 53 years, I've put up with it now, and that Dr. Seuss was 53 when he wrote this book.
He's the like apartment upstairs neighbor of the Who's because he's above them and getting mad that they're making all this noise.
Quiet down there.
I was wondering, guys, this little scene that we get of the Seuss instruments, I just love. Did you have a favorite instrument in this scene?
I do. My favorite instrument is the one where a baby is in a high chair and like the baby is somehow both propelling the high chair themselves and like some sort of percussion instrument. You should never give a baby a self-propelling device, and you should also not give a baby a noise-making device that like makes like loud noise that could bother someone. Do not trust babies with things like that. I was like, that is the worst invention right there.
Well, while I didn't highlight a particular instrument, I do want to highlight the game that they were playing, which is called Zuzzitter Zarzay.
Zuzzitter Karzay.
Yeah, there you go.
The one with the big like tuba thing that you knock a ball through.
And he has like a hula hoop with a tarp or a paper in the middle, and the ball keeps going in and breaking the paper, and then he replaces it with another one.
A roller skate type of lacrosse and croquet.
And in one of my notes for it is for this is I must know the rules of Zoo Zitter Zarze. And in parentheses, I put 2-ball go-through hoop game.
My favorite is the Slew Slunka. They'll slang their Slew Slunka, and it's somebody's got a pea shooter. One person holds a bell, and the other person spits a pea shooter at the bell.
Highly inefficient way to ring, a bell, if you're asking me.
Yeah.
If I were a bell engineer, I would say, let's steer away from the Slew Slonkas.
There's also the who wangs their Hawonka. It's like, who up wanging their Hawonka?
He's really gooning his Wonka.
Oh my goodness. And I wrote in my notes that if my neighbors were making as much noise as these Who's, I'd do something drastic too. Because it really, when you watch it and you're paying attention, like a quarter of the special is them just listing ways that the Who's are making noise.
All the noise, all the noise, all the noise, 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 noise.
But so what Grinch does is he dresses up as Santa Claus and makes his dog Max the reindeer, takes a sled filled with empty sacks, goes down to Whoville, goes in each of the houses, takes all of their Christmas stuff, which is also all of their like stuff, including their food, and then is planning to take it back to Mount Crumpet, where he's going to dump it off the edge.
Into a big ravine. A couple things here. Again, I love the concision. We get the details of going through the first house, which is Cindy Lou Who's house. That he takes everything, and that the only thing he leaves is a crumb much too small for a mouse. And then they say, then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses.
And one thing you can do is you can track the societal opinion on animal abuse based on the dogs in these 3 films. Max in the 1966 one gets a real raw deal. He's like being whipped and like thrown around and stuff like that. And then in 2000, the Grinch is still mean to him, but it's like not nearly as much. And he's basically the heart of the 2018 one. So
I love Max. I think it's very important that's kind of like the key that the Grinch does have a human connection.
Completely agree.
He's got this animal that he's close with.
yeah, and
He's like the key into Grinch's soul is like he keeps this cheerful dog around. So there's got to be a reason why he keeps the cheerful dog
So
around.
the moral is like your weird single uncle maybe have some redeeming qualities.
at least the dog likes him. Like he's got that dog companion with him.
Max also gets really good slapstick in the 66 one that always makes my kids laugh. Like when the sled is starting to go down the mountain and Max is trying to keep up, and then like the sled like falls on top of him, and then he's running away from it, and then he gets stuck under it, and then he gets on the back, and it's just all this very funny visual slapstick humor.
Yeah, also when he runs off the ledge and then kind of turns the sled around at the top of Mount Crumpet.
Or when he gets sucked through the sewing machine, which to me has always been like kind of body horror. But then he does this little shrug to show that I guess that wasn't horribly painful.
And we spend a lot of time in the animated special watching Grinch steal all the stuff. And this is where Chuck Jones is just having a field day with like all the moving parts in the house and Grinch like slithering around and going into trees. And I mean, the whole animated special is vibrant. I shouldn't necessarily say that's like better or more vibrant than the rest of it, because it pretty much all is. But it is very satisfying to watch him like use the magnet to pull out the nails and like all these little gimmicks where he's got like he turns a cane into a pool cue and hits the ornaments.
Yeah, I remember
the chimney and stuff like that.
I remember him doing like an umbrella maneuver on the Christmas tree. He like, as if it's an umbrella, he pulls it open and then he closes it real narrow, and that's how he stuffs it up the chimney and stuff like that.
My artificial Christmas tree actually does work that way. But
Really?
you can fluff it out like an umbrella.
There you go.
And the big addition to the 66 adaptation from the book is the song that fills up these scenes where Grinch is hijacking all the stuff in the house. And that is a song that's so iconic, it gets played every year to the point that it now shoots up the Billboard charts every December. It's like, as we record this, number like 20 in the country. And it's Thurl Ravenscroft singing a song that I believe Dr. Seuss wrote the lyrics.
He did.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch, where he's got all sorts of wordplay about how Grinch just a bad dude. And
he's a crooked jerky jockey.
And he drives a crooked Haas. He has termites in his smile. There's just so many good ones in it.
My favorite
line?
Yeah, my favorite line, and we talk about like the brevity and stuff like that. I just think the three words that best describe you are as follows, and I quote: stink, stank, stunk. For some reason that feels like it's because it's like not a goofy rhyme. It's just like three of the same things. The way it hits hard there, especially because it's right at the end of the song, and they're very like punctuated words.
I've always liked your heart's a dead tomato splotched with moldy purple spots.
That's a good one.
And Thurl Ravenscroft is this big baritone booming voice, best known for being the original Tony the Tiger. They're great.
He also is one of the heads in the Graveyard Barbershop Quartet in Disney's Haunted Mansion. Did some voices for Disneyland.
The special is narrated by Boris Karloff, who's, of course, a horror icon. And he does a great job narrating it. And he also does the Grinch voice. So it's actually kind of cool because it's the narration. And then he, like, as if he's reading a story, he just keeps going and saying what the Grinch is saying.
Right. Kind of like how Bing Crosby did Ichabod when we covered that.
And the mouth, what was the word you used last time, Brian, for the mouth lining up with the...
Oh, the visemes.
Yeah. So we're seeing him actually saying it. Then after he has robbed all of the people's houses, he takes his sleigh all the way back up the mountain. This is the one where I feel really bad for Max because he's just one guy. And this has got like piled 50 feet high and he's pulling it up a mountain. Just one dog pulling up this whole sled.
This is one where we need the Mythbusters.
Yeah.
It's like the physics of this are so preposterous.
I don't need the Mythbusters. I can tell you it ain't possible that dog is lifting like what's got to be,
tons.
Yeah,
okay, fair.
450 tons.
I want the numbers.
What, like how far could it go?
They also make his job harder, I believe, in the animated special. I think in the original picture book, it's 3,000 feet up Mount Crumpet. But in the animated special, they change it to 10,000 feet up Mount Crumpet.
Brutal.
Well, good. I want to talk about this, and Will actually opened my eyes this week because in the 2000 film, as well as Seussical the Musical, the Who's in the Grinch story are equated with the Who's in the Horton Hears a Who story, where in Horton Hears a Who, the Who's live on like a speck of dust. And in Seussical and the 2000 film, they make explicit that the Who's live on a snowflake. So these are microscopic creatures. And so then I wondered, well, how could a mountain in Whoville be 3,000 feet tall? And Will said, Who feet. Who feet, baby.
Yeah,
these aren't human feet. This is a unit of measure devised from ancient times on the basis of who feet. And it's like, wow, okay. My whole perspective has changed.
Is years the same unit of measurement, though?
So is the Grinch not actually 53 years old?
But as he's up there, he's getting ready to push the junk off the mountain. He's like, all right, before I do it, I just want to savor them coming out and being sad and moping about Christmas being canceled because their stuff is gone. And it made me think this time of in The Office. One of my favorite episodes is when they hold the Yankee Swap Christmas party. And actually, it might not be that one. It might be a later one. But anyways, at some point, Michael gets upset and he says, Christmas is canceled. And Stanley says, you can't cancel a holiday. Tell Stanley to be quiet or he's losing New Year's too. But just this idea of somebody like canceling a holiday by sheer force of will.
Yeah, he stole Christmas by taking the stuff. Which is, that's not how it works, buddy.
But of course, they still come... Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, so I said I'd watch The Grinch a lot. Dan has watched The Grinch a lot. But I've determined this is one of the films that I've watched more than any other. Like, it might be the film that I've seen the most. And so I've pretty much committed this to memory, the verse. And just every bit is good. But this, like... perilous precipice of the sled hanging off the edge and the thought process and the dialogue is very burned into my brain of the that's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. Then he paused, and the Grinch put a hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow.
I love it. And it's just like you got good use of, it was merry, very. Like some of these, like the way the lines sort of, he does a good mix of like obvious rhymes with like the rhymes within the lines and then rhymes at the end of the lines. And it really is springy the way everything's read.
Actually, it was very merry. That's in the book and the 2000 version, but it's a little different in the 66 version. It's, well, that sound wasn't sad. Why, that sound sounded glad.
And indeed, they still come out and they still sing their Christmas song. And Grinch is just baffled. How I've taken all their junk, and yet they're still singing.
It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags.
When he does that, he's like taking the dog and like pulling him close to ask him. I love the way that it's animated.
That is, I mentioned this to these two, but it was parodied in my favorite episode of The Simpsons, which is called Last Exit to Springfield, which is when Homer is a union boss. And at one point, the striking nuclear power plant people are singing, and then Mr. Burns turns off the power and is like listening over them like the Grinch was listening down on the Who's, and you get a him tugging on Smithers like the Grinch tugs on Max in that episode. And I watched this with my younger sister who's back from college, and she had seen the Simpsons special, the Simpsons episode, but not the 66 special, and she said, "Oh, that's where the Simpsons got that from."
Yeah. And as they're still singing, his heart grows 3 sizes. So I guess if it was 2 sizes too small, it's now like 1 size larger than normal. It's like an XL heart at this point.
I feel like that's a health condition.
Yeah, which actually comes up with Jim Carrey. He got some mileage out of writhing on the ground when the heart grows.
It's like he's dying. It's like he's having a heart attack.
And he has this necessary moment of awareness and euphoria. He gets blue in his eyes, and he takes the sled down Mount Crumpet and distributes the gifts to all of the Who's.
One other thing, before the sled slides over the edge of the mountain, the Grinch has to grab it. So he's got this revelation where the true meaning of Christmas came through, and the Grinch found the strength of 10 Grinches plus 2. And that, for me, we talked in our Year Without a Santa Claus episode about the inspirational dialogue. Gargus's review that highlighted something from Peter O'Toole that was really inspirational. For me, it's the finding of the 12 Grinch strengths.
The 12 strengths of the Grinch.
As he goes down and distributes the stuff, he gets welcomed into the Who's Christmas celebrations, and in fact is the one who carves the roast beast.
When I was a kid and they talk about rare Who roast beast, I thought it was like uncommon rare. I didn't make the connection to like not well
rare meat.
Like rare meat.
Oh, okay.
I was like, okay. So these days it's like a rare steak or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I really like the food. One of the
Who hash.
food items is Who hash, which makes me laugh every year. Every time I watch this, I could not believe that the edgy 2000 film doesn't make a stoner joke about Who hash. But here we are.
Yeah.
And I like that there's this kind of moment of giddiness, because to me, all the great Christmas stories have a moment of giddiness for the grumpy protagonist. I mean, it's Grinch. It's also in Charlie Brown Christmas when he learns what Christmas is all about, and they start singing
Hark the Herald Angels Sing.
And then, of course, It's a Wonderful Life. Would you look at that? My lips bleeding.
Zuzu's petals.
Yeah, and like the pivot moment with the Grinch is he says, maybe Christmas, perhaps, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more.
And then the last one is obviously the kind of the version of this archetype, Scrooge. his moment of giddiness Christmas morning when he wakes up and it's Christmas Day and he can tell the poor boy to go buy the largest goose at the poulterer's.
Is it a turkey or a goose in the original
It's a
text?
turkey. I wouldn't have said anything if you didn't say anything.
Well, because I think at that point, goose was the more common thing, right? And then the turkey was like, it had to be imported from America or something. So I think the turkey was like the rare. The turkey was the rare who roast beast. Rare in this case, uncommon, not undercooked.
Roast beast is a feast I can't stand in the least.
I know that Brian would eat a roast beast, whatever the beast is.
Yeah, if somebody presented a food to me and said, this is rare who roast beast, my plate's already clean, man.
Bring it here.
One last thought on the animated one. When I say animated one, I mean the original special. I guess the 2018 or 19 or whatever it is also animated. But there's this one guy I follow on Letterboxd. His name's Bryce Wilson. I'll drop his review in the Goods Discord. You can come join us at thegoodsfilmpodcast.com. And he wrote that the Who's are Unitarians. I don't know how I know this, but I know. And this tickled me in part because I've recently been attending a Unitarian Universalist church with my family. And that did ring true for me because they're not Christian. Some of the people there are Christian and like celebrate Christian things, but explicitly it's not only Christian, but they still they still enjoy these kinds of celebrations, and also like they're very optimistic and they like still like to celebrate stuff. And so I was like, yeah, this does kind of read as a Unitarian type celebration, like dodging the Christianity of it when it like feels like it should be Christian is kind of a Unitarian thing. And then yes, just the sort of we will persist spirit.
Yeah, and they kind of sing this mock Latin that is like a stand-in for established religion.
So that is the 1966 adaptation. Again, just less than a half hour, shorter than a half hour. And the earliest it came less than 10 years after the publication of the book. The next one we're going to discuss is the 2000 adaptation directed by Ron Howard. And this one is divisive, bordering on toxic among movie lovers that I follow.
Okay, so not just Seuss fans, but even movie lovers.
Yes.
Okay, so I remember, so I was 10 when this movie came out, and this was one that got the enormous marketing push. It was all over the place. It was like the Godzilla 98 Armageddon level, just like this is what's getting the marketing this year, which is kind of unusual for a Christmas film.
It ended with a 50% Rotten Tomatoes score, at least according to what I pulled. And that is like, I would say, in some ways it's been a little bit reclaimed by some groups since then, but I think more often it's just been like, what on earth is this movie? It's live action. Kind of odd that it's Ron Howard, because Ron Howard I think of as having a very anonymous style. And of all the things you would say about Grinch 2000, having an anonymous style would definitely not be one of them. It stars Jim Carrey as the Grinch. So we've gone from Boris Karloff to Jim Carrey, but of course the difficulty curve is much higher because Carrey is wearing Grinch costume and makeup. And it's feature length. So one thing we've talked about a decent amount on the Goods is that it is a perilous task to take a short story, particularly a children's story that's like, in the realm of 64 pages, as is The Grinch, and to turn that into something feature length. So inevitably you're going to be inventing or less generously padding to get out to that feature length.
Yes, the only instance I've seen yet where literally it's you just have the short story turned into a feature, I would say the Angry Birds movie. Somehow they turned the story of the app of the pigs come, the pigs take the eggs, and then the birds pursue the pigs, and they use their individual abilities to break down the fortress of the pigs. that's the entire plot of the Angry Birds movie. So somehow they did it.
So I had seen this movie at least once or twice before, but not for quite a long time. Some of the movie crowd that I follow, so like, for example, the critic Tim Brayton of Alternate Ending, they did a list of the worst Christmas movies of all time. And this is a guy who's seen something like 10,000 feature-length films ever. So, quite a few. Has a pretty panoramic view of all the movies that have been made and had it as the second worst Christmas movie ever made.
That's wrong. Even if that's like hater vibes, because there's no way it's the second worst Christmas movie ever made. Even if you don't like it, I think Jim Carrey's performance. First of all, it should be noted that he has had like PTSD from the makeup for this movie, and he tried to pay them off like $10 million to let him not continue making this movie because of how bad and excruciating getting into the makeup of it was. But I think his whole performance and the way it's obviously the core of the movie, and I don't know if they could have picked a more Grinchly man than Jim Carrey.
Well, in particular, I don't think they could pick someone who has to bring to life a cartoon character than Jim Carrey.
Yeah, so a couple thoughts about this. Again, I didn't watch it for the first time until last year. And for whatever reason, when I watched it the first time, I had a very positive experience. Like, I guess just because I had such a negative pre-image in my head, it's like, it wasn't as bad as I was afraid it would be. This year, I watched it again for this week, and some of the shine wore off. Like, I didn't like it as much as the last time I watched it. But every time that you get a close-up of the Grinch, and you see that makeup, and you see Jim Carrey mugging, it's like, this is why we're here. It's like, this is incredible. And the track record of makeup artist Rick Baker winning the Oscar is incredible, because he won the inaugural chapter of it in like 1982 for Harry and the Hendersons. And then like through the 90s into the 2000s, there's like a 8-year stretch where he won 5 times. And it's like, this is the kind of movie that Rick Baker makes.
So what story-wise, what we do in this is essentially an hour of invented material leading up to a more or less a recreation of the story from the book and from the 1966 short. And what that opening hour achieves is a lot of new perspective on the Grinch and his origin and his relationship with the Who's. It kind of like gives us his childhood story and why he might have reasons to be more resentful of the Who's. And not only does it color the Grinch differently, it colors the Who's completely differently. Like, you would not call these Who's Unitarians, I don't think, at least like not in their general demeanor. But they get a lot more darkness, and I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like, if you're making something that's critical of consumerism, you need consumerists. I was kind of missing the energy of Thneedville, where like I still like the people in Thneedville, even though they're consumerist people, and I'm vibing with their joy about being consumerist, even though I kind of recognize they're annoying, but I'm still vibing with them, Thneedville and the Lorax. But here, there's a lot of darkness to them.
Yes, the Who's need to learn a lesson in this film, whereas in the first one, the original TV special, just the Grinch needs to learn a lesson. I get the sense that the Who's in 66 knew all along what Christmas was really about, so that when it's taken away, we don't even need to see their moment of reaction to the heist. They just go out into the square and do their song. And so, like, the Grinch looking in from the outside, he perceived it one way, and it wasn't necessarily that way. Here, though, the Who's, just as much as the Grinch, if not more so, need to learn a lesson and make a change.
Yeah, it's more of a sort of reconciliation between the Grinch and the Who's, rather than just the Grinch learning a lesson. And then along with that, you get this sense of societal sort of decaying as Christmas has become more and more commercial. And I mean, the opening scene with the Who's is like a clear like Black Friday, like they're trampling to buy stuff, and you get all this sense of them wrapping presents and sending presents, and repeatedly you get some of these the Who's saying that Christmas is all about the presents and stuff like that. So it's a lot more on the nose. Whereas in the 1966 one, obviously they're more like elemental. They're just the spirit of good Christmas rather than being fully developed, very flawed, like a society that bears critiquing rather than just a reflection of what Christmas might be.
And it's so garish. And like, I respect the production design on one hand. I mean, I already talked up Rick Baker, but just like everything they had to build and put together for this live action production, and all the colors, and like even the angles, like even the cinematography of it is almost bordering into like horror. Like, it's kind of scary.
This is I call it We Used to Be a Country movie. It's like, we used to be a country. We used to make movies like this. And it's true. I mean, not everyone was quite as extreme as the Grinch, but it's a lost art. I've talked about it. Like, Men in Black we used to be a country. Rush Hour, we used to be a country. Yeah, because everything is made and like visible and tactile and ugly and weird to look at. And the actors are all they like cast kind of annoying people. Like the love interest is Christine Baranski, who's got kind of an annoying screen presence.
Yeah.
This movie, like, the elephant in the room was obviously, like, what were the noses? Like, they have these hideous prosthetic noses, and I love it. It's just, I'm sorry, I'm going to come down very positively on this movie, and that might be partly because of nostalgia, but this movie is irreverent. I think that's the word to use to describe it. It is not reverent towards the source material at all, and obviously the writing is extremely irreverent as well. But I don't think it's trying to be an It's clearly deliberately a gross extrapolation of the source material. I don't think Ron Howard was trying to make something that was treating the text as Bible when he made it.
Sure. And it's such a distinctive look. I mean, you remember these Who's. This year, the Walmart is doing this series of like knockoff Grinch commercials, and they're aping the look of this movie, where it's the Who's have these pinched faces. And actually, I dated a girl from 2021 into 2022, and I just kept thinking, when I saw this film for the first time last year, it's like, oh, she looked like a Who. She had a narrow face and a pointy kind of upturned nose and the blonde hair, where she looked like somewhere between the spectrum of this movie's Cindy Lou and this movie's, what's the Christine Baranski character?
Martha May Whovier.
Martha May Whovier, exactly. Yeah. Yes.
The gist of the story is that Grinch, as a kid, was raised by Who's.
Lesbian swinger Who's, to be specific.
Right. And he attended Who school and sort of hit it off with a young version of Martha May Whovier, and but like was kind of trying to fit in too, and had this trauma moment where he tried to like make himself look cool, or at least less weird, because he's a green gorilla.
He shaved, essentially.
Yeah, he tried to shave, and like because they build up to it, and I want it to look worse than it actually looks, because Grinch always looks really weird already.
Especially Kid Grinch. The Kid Grinch in this movie, in both like the baby and the child Grinch, are like horrifying.
Right, so the baby Grinch is played by like a robot, and then the child Grinch, you can tell, is played by like a wicked actor. Like I forget what that actor's name was, but like a person of small stature. Like, he's got some kind of dwarfism that make the proportions of his features off in a way, even under the prostheses.
And yeah, he just essentially does a bad job shaving and has like 5 or 6 like old-timey cartoon tissue patch on his chin where he cut it up, and then you hear that, look at that hack job! And then the teacher starts laughing at him. I was thinking, as I often do when I watch The Grinch, of A Silent Voice, the deaf girl bullying movie, which has a very similar plot structure, except when she gets bullied, she doesn't strip naked and climb up a mountain and become a recluse. So
right, so then that sends him away, and it's kind of the structure. It's a little more complicated than I thought, because it kind of starts in medias res, and then it flashes back. And then it comes back to the present, and Cindy Lou Who, in the present timeline, when we have Jim Carrey Grinch, is played by a child, Taylor Momsen, who went on to be in Gossip Girl and then joined a punk rock band.
Also this year in the Thanksgiving parade, Taylor Momsen sang on the Grinch float for the 25th anniversary of the movie. So she was 7 in this movie, and she's 32 now, and it's like, oh,
Time has passed.
She's aged well. Like, she's quite good looking.
And
I was gonna say, and the one thing that I don't know, is that Cindy Lou Who here is the sort of, she is the spirit of the Who's of the 1966.
Right.
She is what remains. She is the one who's like trying to find the purpose of Christmas here. And in that, she encounters the Grinch as he is being an agent of chaos in the post office scene, which I adore. Jury duty, blackmail, jury duty, eviction notice, that whole, anyway. And then after that, she's like, what's the deal with the Grinch? Why can't anybody talk about the Grinch? And that's how we get the flashbacks. So she's the sort of moral compass of this whole plot, instead of the Who's at large.
right. And
Yeah, she's the one who gets it, like what Christmas is supposed to be, and sees through everything that's just conglomerated in the commercialization of Christmas.
right, and the cruelty that has been bestowed upon Grinch. So this is the one that introduces and toys with the idea that the Grinch is grumpy not just because he's a green gorilla sipping his tea up on a cave and doesn't want to get distracted by noise, but because he's got prior beef and trauma with the Who's down in Whoville.
And when you get traumatized, the natural reaction is to climb the nearby mountain, dig out a cave, live there, and terrorize the people who traumatized you by mixing up their mail and torturing them at the Whobilation.
And so Cindy Lou Who orchestrates a Christmas party type thing where they're gonna, I guess they all agree they're gonna like welcome Grinchy back, right?
Well, he says, what happens is they're trying to pick nominations for the Cheermeister.
Right, that's what it is,
At the
Cheermeister.
1000th Whobilation, and it's a nominee-based system. And then I guess the way it is the mayor has always been nominated to win. But Cindy Lou Who comes up and says, no, I nominate the Grinch because in the Book of Who, which is, I guess, a thing, they say it's the person who needs cheer the most. And who needs cheer more than Jim Carrey's Grinch? So
I like the idea. I did like the idea that they always nominate the mayor. It's always the mayor. Oh, what a big surprise.
And even after it goes poorly, he's like, let's get things back to the way it's supposed to be. And then he puts the Christmas crown on himself.
And the mayor is played by Jeffrey Tambor, who a couple years later would be the father in Arrested Development, which was another Ron Howard project.
Right. So some connections there.
And he's got a lackey who's played by Clint Howard, and who is Ron Howard's just horribly unphotogenic brother. I think he's probably the only human who looks more handsome as a Who.
I think the Whobilation it's like the essence of this movie distilled in a 5-minute scene, because you get like all the ridiculous Jim Carrey-isms, like when he's sack racing a bunch of children and the Chariots of Fire theme is playing in the background, and he yells, "No child can beat the Grinch." And you get him doing like the eating contest, and then when everything goes down, he's riding on that little car that explodes. Mm-hmm. And it's all that sort of The Mask type energy from Jim Carrey in like this 5-minute scene.
And for a minute, we're getting the sense that like, oh, the Grinch is on the Who's wavelength. He'll fit in with the Who's. He's been reintegrated in with the Who's. Like it's actually working. But then things take a turn for the South, for the worse. We get our Carrey moment where they bring him up on stage and they're honoring him. And the way that they honor him is they bring out a razor, the same kind that he used to shave himself and cut himself when he was a kid. And just like Carrey, he snaps and he starts terrorizing the Whoville celebration.
Carrey's a great example. I was thinking of Hunchback of Notre Dame, where they do the Feast of Fools, and he gets brought into the town square ostensibly to be celebrated, and then they start like hitting him with eggs, and they strap him to the wheel.
Yeah, and the mayor was the one who bullied him for shaving when he was a kid as well. So it's the same guy. And again, yeah, I was reminded of A Silent Voice when the main character has his breakdown and like sends away all of his new old friends after they had reconciled.
And so he causes a mess, and he goes back up to Mount Crumpet, his cave, and that kicks off the story as we know it at that point. So, but the real charm of this movie is not in the narrative. It's in like all the weird little stuff. So let's each call out 1 or 2 or 3 little weird things that's in this movie. Because boy, are there a lot of little weird things in Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas from 2000.
I've got one, which is when they're going to the Jubilation, the family of Cindy Lou Who are all wearing these hats that are beverages. Like Cindy Lou Who has a hot cocoa cup, and the dad, who I think is just Lou, has a punch bowl, except they have liquid in them. So when they're walking around, you can see the liquid sloshing around in their hats, which I always thought was incredible.
I like Cindy Lou's family. She's got these 2 older teen brothers who are in this scene at the beginning where they're like, it's like a horror movie. They're taking their dates up the mountain to like scare them by, oh, the Grinch is up here. And they just have this dopey look. They're really tall, and they have the pinched two noses like everybody else.
They always make me think of Biff for some reason from Back to the Future.
The rebellious teens that always hang out with Biff.
Yeah, and then Will kind of already acknowledged it, but in the flashback, there's a Who key party of the swingers putting their keys in the fishbowl at this adult Who party. And it's like, who thought that this is what the Grinch needed? We need wife swapping.
Another thing I really like is that the Who's mountain is the garbage dump. So they send up all the garbage, and they kind of tie it into the theme a little bit, where he talks about how he sees everything they throw away right after they throw it away, because it's the sort of whole Christmas commercialism. Everything ends up in the dump, and it gets sent up to him. And also, he was thrown away in many ways by the Who's down in Whoville.
Well said. There's also the emphasis on putting a lot of lights up, which is something you see in many Christmas specials. Of like, that's kind of the icon of the over commercialism is how many lights you have. But Martha May Whovier has like a penis cannon for putting up the Christmas lights.
How did they do that scene? Like, the way the lights go on, I was like, did they just have it pull them and they reverse the footage? But at some point you see smoke coming out. And I'm like, how did they do this scene of them shooting the lights at the house and having it cling on?
That's a good question.
I like how you call it the penis gun.
Well, I mean, watch this shot and how it's done. Like the rattling of it, the back and forth of it. She is thrusting as she's hanging these lights.
The scene that we talk about most often in our family, because my mom, I don't know how to describe her sense of humor, but she latches onto specific things that make her laugh a lot. And there's one scene, Will was actually using it as an example of why it's annoying to watch movies with our mom, because she'll like build up a joke and be like, start saying it before it's happening. But there's this bit, it's pretty early on when he's in the cave, and this is like, I kind of like this moment because we're getting a little sense that he might be kind of lonely, but he's like talking with himself by making it echo in the cave and like realizing that it always echoes. So it always says what he says, and it has a couple of good gags in there. So like at first it's a perfect echo, but then he tries to make the cave say, I'm an idiot. So he says, I'm an idiot. And then it echoes back, you're an idiot. And it's like, okay, that's funny. And then he does a little thing where he's like, well, I'm going to talk so quiet that by the time the sound waves reach me, that it won't even be an echo at all. So I'm taking away her voice. And there's a pause. And then you hear, you're an idiot again. And that's one that always slayed my mom. I always like that. I've learned that one moment here in this movie that's kind of infamous. I think there's a lot of things that are like minorly infamous in this, but one is it's during the last stretch when they're going and robbing the house, and they rob the mayor's house, and the mayor's having some sort of sex dream, it appears, because he's engaged to the Christine Baranski character, Even though we still, even when she's a grown-up, kind of get the sense that, like, she has Beauty and the Beast syndrome with the Grinch.
Yeah, just inexplicably attracted to the Grinch.
No, she likes his strength. Remember, she goes, the muscles at one
yes.
point. Yeah, one of my notes about this movie is that it's sexually confused.
Definitely. And then the Grinch puts the dog's butt onto the guy's face, and then the dog is like dragging his butt to clean it. Like, you know how dogs drag their butts on carpets when they need to clean their butts. And like the implication that like this dude made out with the dog's butt in his dream.
Yeah, it's brief, but it happens. And speaking of dogs scratching butts, I've told Dan this. I have a dog, and his name is Rudy, named after, of course, Sean Astin. And so my house where I live is mostly hardwood, but there are a couple of carpeted rooms, including where my office is. And from what I understand, observing Rudy, is that wooden floors are not the best for butt scratching. Carpeted rooms are much better. So I have my office where my computer is, and I'm sitting in there. And sometimes Rudy will come upstairs. He'll walk into my office. He'll scratch his butt and kind of look at me. And his face gets a little bit contorted while he's dragging his butt on the ground. So he's like watching me do this, and then he just leaves the room. It's like the ultimate power move. He comes into my office to scratch the butt on the ground and then get out of there.
It's pretty funny.
Another thing I really like is... you mentioned that this movie has several infamous. I think this is not infamous, but it's kind of been. You were talking about stuff being reclaimed. When he's listing his schedule of what he's going to do for that day, you'll see people reference this a lot. He's like 4:30, wallow in self-pity. 5:00, dinner alone. 7:00, slip slowly into madness or whatever. He's going through that whole schedule, and I think that is one you see referenced a lot.
And for whatever reason, I dug that last year. Any scene where he was alone in his cave talking to himself, I was vibing with that. Less so this time, but I don't know. I liked it because it gave us opportunity to look at like the face and the contact lenses specifically. These crazy yellow Sith contact lenses he's got in. And just the Jim Carrey doing his thing of like he does some exercises. There's a scene where he eats a glass bottle, and just the kind of cartoonishness of that, but also like the misery I appreciated.
And then he says, "Am I just eating because I'm bored?" And he also does another in the same vein. Is when he's trying to decide what to wear, and he puts on like a tablecloth as a dress. And then he's like, "But what would I wear?" He's like, "If I can't find something nice to wear, then I'm not going." And then he kidnaps a yodeler and steals his overalls. And then he models it for a second. He said, "That's it. I'm not going." Like that whole beat always cracks me up.
We've talked about Hunter Allen, the writer at Kinemalog. He has a letterbox capsule of this movie where he calls it the ugly sweater of movies, of Christmas movies. And I kind of like that because ugly sweaters are kind of like a tacky tradition, and they're intentionally not conventionally like good to look at, but they're fun, you know? And I kind of get that vibe from this. Like, it is not boring. It's packed with stuff and images and weirdness.
There are so many jokes in this movie. It is I find it very funny and very deliberately funny. Like a lot of the fourth wall breaks and just the quirky humor from Jim Carrey, and even some of the more like subtler jokes in the writing are quite funny in my opinion, and good, clever wordplay. They're not Seussian. It's not like they're doing these rhymes for the most part, but like the script is pretty deliberately funny.
All right, so that is the 2000 How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Moving on to 2018. So this is made by Illumination, who are best known as the Minions company, although nowadays you might also know them. I think their highest grossing movie now is the Mario movie, and they're making Mario 2. And they made an animated Grinch in the wake of the Lorax, like we talked about, being, I don't quite know, it must have been enough of a hit to want to continue that.
Yeah, so the Lorax was 2012.
I just feel like the Grinch is a more iconic story than the Lorax, probably. I mean, the Lorax is like A-tier Seuss property, but the Grinch is probably S tier. Seuss property.
Grinch and Cat in the Hat of the S tier titles.
Agree, yeah. So I think if the Lorax was somewhat of a success, then it makes sense to dip back into the Grinch Valley. I don't know what I'm saying. Punch Bowl.
Got to Grinch it up some more.
True.
Get Grinchy in there.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this one, if the 2000 adaptation strategy was just make everything like weird and intense and like just irreverent is the word that Will used, just like kind of packed with gags and pushing stuff to the outer brim. This one is a little more down the middle, I would say.
Keep it sweet, keep it safe.
Right. And the Grinch is voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch, but not doing the Benedict Cumberbatch voice, like doing like a Americanish accent, I guess it was.
He sounds like a random American guy.
So why are you casting Benedict Cumberbatch if you're not going to do the Benedict Cumberbatch voice?
That's what I said. It's not like the Who's are canonically American, but I mean, and I think it would have worked as a contrast between the American the American Who's with the British Grinch. I think that could have been an interesting contrast, but no, instead we get American Benedict Cumberbatch.
And mainly what this one does is it pads it a little bit. So it's a short movie. Credits are running at like minute 78 or something like that, if even. So it's even shorter. Illuminations tend to be kind of short. We've talked a little bit about Illumination. To me, they have a very distinctive style. You can tell with some of the animation ticks, and I'm sure like you could probably precisely diagram what I'm talking about, but I just see certain bits of animation. I'm like, okay, that's Minions-y. That's Illumination-y. They also tend to not be very deep stories. I don't find them especially emotionally rich or like tonally consistent. They just are kind of manic. They're not like out of control. They're like very professional and like sanded down, but they tend to kind of replace what I would consider like the emotional arc with like a lot of mayhem.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed is they're very kinetic. There's a lot of sort of chase sequences. The camera is always moving and often like going through things, kind of demonstrating that the environment is very complex. And like there are a lot of people on the screen at once often.
Mm-hmm. And the characters move in a kind of an elastic way. What I found is they're very bouncy, and I think you can tell Illumination movies have kind of distinct ways that people walk and stuff like that. Like I thought that the Grinch in this one, the way he held his hands behind his back and he was walking, I was like, oh, this is like Gru from Despicable Me.
But one thing I will say is in the early days of Illumination, I thought of them as kind of like DreamWorks filler, like not the best animation, but I'll say that I have a lot of problems with this movie, but I think it's pretty well animated. It does some pretty cool stuff, particularly with like sprawling vistas. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's got like these huge open environments.
There's a lot of extreme wide shots, and I felt like even on my big like 60-inch TV, it was too small a screen. It's like, dang, I needed to have seen this one in the theaters because yeah, these shots of the mountain expanse of the snow and stuff. And then when he goes into the town, even there's town shots. And it's like, I need to be seeing this on a larger screen.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of motion in the town. And like the houses are winding open. And like there's a bunch of characters in the background running around doing stuff. And I think and you get like, I remember they were like sawing up ice in the background, making an ice sculpture. And that was just a little thing in the background. And I think it captures a lot of the Seussian look in a way that it's obviously much easier to do that in an animated flick, but you still have the sort of spindly, windy, metal like apparatuses that I think of as being Seussian, and a lot of like curly Q stuff and stuff like unfolding into almost like accordion type things that you get in the Dr. Seuss style here. I think you get that in spades.
And I gather that there must have been a 3D release of this film.
Oh yeah, it's got the look of the Lorax has it too.
Yeah,
like
Dan got me the 3D Blu-ray of the Lorax, and I might have to track down one for the Grinch if there is one, because it was a little later. It was a little past that window in time where so many things were doing 3D, but I could just tell.
And one thing, in some ways, it doesn't do favors to itself by being on the tail of the Lorax, because it doesn't have some of the strengths of the Lorax. Particularly, it doesn't have the banging soundtrack. I was missing like just rip roaring numbers, originals. It does have a little bit of music, but it's never like there's nothing that makes you like made me sit up in my chair the way that Needville does in its opener.
Right. Both movies can't get away from how good the soundtrack was in 66.
Right.
They're still drawing on the music that was created for that special. 2000 at least had the original song of Where Are You Christmas?
It also had 2000 had one diegetic number that is a song by the Bare Naked Ladies called Green Christmas, which is off of their like 97, 98 album called Bare Naked for the Holidays. And it's basically Green Christmas. It's about like a commercial Christmas. And I was like, oh, this is the themes of the movie in a song. So I recommend, first of all, that's one of my favorite Christmas albums or holiday albums because they have a Hanukkah song on there as well. But that song in particular is on the soundtrack, and I really like that. I do think the instrumental soundtrack in 2018 is pretty good.
It's Danny Elfman is the composer for 2018, which is one of those names you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. I think Elfman's reputation has fallen off just a little bit, but still a good get.
But yeah, when he rolls into the town to start stealing things in 2018, I was thinking, this is feeling like Nightmare Before Christmas. And it's like, wait a minute. This sounds like Nightmare Before Christmas.
Meanwhile, the Cindy Lou Who character has her like a new arc, and this arc is her mom is a single mom, heavily implied to be that the dad died, and the mom is having a hard time. They talk around it, but
just make it textual. Is my like I was like they keep the. Basically, Cindy's like, I want my mom to be happy too, but they don't give any concrete details here enough for, I think, it to get either a discreet ask from the Grinch in the scene where they're talking when the Grinch finally invades their house, and also it's just like it doesn't. I think it lacks. You take away from the emotional heft by having it be so vague, and I think they don't want to say like, oh, her dad died because it's a kids Christmas music, you can have a single mom and everything like that, that's fine, but at the same time I think you got to get a little bit more explicit in what actually is going on there.
Yeah, so since we're spending time on this now, what I was thinking, so what it ultimately ends up being is like they really emphasize in this one that the Grinch builds gadgets, which he does in 2000 also, and there's kind of like a post-credit scene here of like, I guess the Grinch gave her gadgets, and so it kind of helps with the housework because like Cindy says, you know, she works so hard, the single mom, to take care of us, and wouldn't it be nice if something could share the load, could take the work off. And so I was wondering, is the Grinch gonna marry the mom?
I had the same exact thought. And the other thing I was wondering, I didn't see the post-credit scene, by the way, I gotta go back and watch that after this, but I had the same thought, especially because the first thing we see of Whoville is not Cindy Lou, it's Donna, the mom, I think is her name, Donna, getting on like the bus, and they're then be like, oh, they still got you on the night shift, huh? You're overworked. By the way, Cindy Lou, so it's like you get a little bit of, oh, the mom's gonna be the main character here, not the daughter. But then, unfortunately, the Illumination wasn't bold enough to give us a Christmas romance starring the Grinch.
That would be an interesting, you know, they've done Hot Frosty. I want to see the Grinch-themed Hallmark.
Hot Grinchy. I'm sorry, and I can't go any further in this without bringing up my first glaring issue, which is that they canonically make it so the Grinch is wearing green clothing. At the beginning, he's wearing underpants, and he pulls on furry green pants on top of that.
Match his legs.
And
so.
My sister was like, does that mean... I said, it's like if you're wearing skin-colored leggings and also a skin-colored shirt, and that's just what you walk around in all the time. Why the fuck would they do this? This is like the entire rest of the time, whenever he put on anything, I was just thinking about, he's wearing green pants right now.
He's like the Greendale human being. Like he's wearing a body sock that's skin color.
It kind of kicks off this little story where Cindy Lou Who is like sending a wish to Santa, but that's not going to work because it's too close to Christmas. So then she's going to like kidnap Santa, I think. And the Grinch, of course, performs Santa actions where He
I'm
enters
going to use
into a
my
house.
free turn to perform a Santa action.
And it's there's some things that are silly, like they make it being like, oh, it's about the cookies and the milk. Like I was like, this. It feels like they're just pulling random threads that are not really in the text. I know I was just defending the irreverence of the 2001, but this one felt like it was going for more of a reference to the text. But there was a few things that where they just departed completely from the 66 version, from the original storybook, that I was like, if you're going to make something that's supposed to be just a feature-length family film of the original text, why are reindeer not scarce? Why does he not get stuck in the chimney? Like all these things like that. And yeah.
Let's talk about the reindeer, because this movie, more so than the 2000, feels like they just had to find a way to take a 64-page book and get it out to feature length, both because it comes in at like 78 minutes or whatever it was, and also because they just have in like these extra sequences. Lorax, we talked about this too. There's just like sequences they kind of throw in there to kind of pad it a little bit. And this one is he tries to find reindeer, and he ends up with a fat reindeer helping him out. Fred,
I've said this, I think, to Dan and Brian at this point, but Fred gives me big Poochie energy from
Big
The
Poochie
Simpsons.
energy. That would be an episode title.
He's like, oh, this fat reindeer shows up to be an example of being a family, and also is the one pulling. In the text, it explicitly says that there were none to be found, not that he stumbles upon a giant field of reindeer and the fat one comes with him for a day, but then has to go back to his reindeer family. Fred, to me, was the most egregious departure from the text.
It was certainly a departure. I ended up liking it by the end. So it's it's the normal reindeer run away, and you're left with this one like dopey reindeer, this deficient, perhaps outcast reindeer. And that's the one who ends up as part of the Grinch posse. It's like this first friend other than Max that the Grinch makes. And I was wondering, it's like, but Max is a reindeer.
Right,
Reindeer were scarce. How is this
Yes.
gonna fit?
Well,
This
like-
seems wrong. But then Fred gets waylaid because as they're going through the valley, turns out Fred has a family. Turns out there's someone out there for Fred. Turns out this weirdo reindeer has connections, has a village. And so it kind of opens the door that this is the trajectory that we're on.
Oh, and it's not like, I was just like confused because Fred came with him for a day and just had like a slumber party with him. It's not like he was captive there. And then he left and he was like, oh yeah, my family, forgot about them. And it's like, okay, you just left them for a
If I
night?
had a nickel for every time I'd done that one.
It's like, you just left them for a night? Like, what's the point? Come on, Fred.
And so the climax of this one is, it looks like the Grinch is about to get away with it. But Will's right. There's this whole thing where he's always tempted by the cookies and milk.
Okay, so this is weird because remember in the original, the Grinch takes everything, including the food. And here he's like, but I can't let myself be distracted by the food. But that is the trap that Cindy Lou
Right.
sets.
Because she's trying to capture Santa Claus.
She doesn't want to kidnap him. She just wants to talk to him. Because the whole thing is nobody's ever met Santa Claus. And interpret that as you will, whether Santa doesn't exist in this universe or that Santa is like explicitly magic and the presents come because they're magic. But either way, she sets a trap using a cookie because she wants to be like, hey, Santa, I guess make my mom not have to work the night shift or whatever the ask is going to be. But
What's Santa going to do about that?
I
by the
know.
way?
Everything about this, the whole Cindy Lou plot, felt half-baked. Because it would be a lot more emotionally compelling if she's like, I want a dad or something like that, in my opinion. Especially coming from a child, because it feels like, oh, okay, that's like, that's a more complex thing to unpack. But obviously this is a children's movie, and maybe you don't want to unpack the want of, hey, Santa, can you give me a dad? But yeah, I don't know.
Well, to me, devil's advocate, I thought kind of the whole the mission statement of this version was really emphasizing the community. Like, it's not just commercialism is bad, it's you can't live on your own, you need to be plugged into a community. And this discussion with Cindy Lou Who is in part delivering that to the Grinch. And so the transformation that the Grinch undergoes starts here in this scene. They made Cindy the last house, whereas in the other versions, she's always the first house. And it's like, he's turning it over in his head and he's starting to change before he even gets to the mountaintop.
Yeah, and I think it goes even further than that, because one thing we haven't talked about is the narration by Pharrell, which, first of all, I think was another odd choice in voicing. I don't know if he has he definitely does not have the what's the guy's name? Boris Karloff energy from 66.
Yeah, and 2000 was Anthony Hopkins, which was awesome. I didn't realize that was him the first time I had watched it.
Yeah, Pharrell does not have the presence that either of those two voices are. And not only that, but the narration he gives is just like, oh, by the way, the Grinch was a lonely child. Like, and they even do flashes back to like an orphanage.
I forgot about that for a second. So they get a trauma story too, but it's like, because it's not in this weird, insane carnival world that the 2001 is set in, it really feels tacked on. Like, well, if we're gonna have an anti-hero, he's got to have a good reason why, and he's sad because he got traumatized as a kid.
Right, and it's not even like he has no reason not to be part of this Hootown. He's just sad because, like, at least in the 2000 version, they were all complete assholes to him, and in the 66 version, he's just inherently grumpy. It seems like. In this one, it's pretty clear that he wants to join in. Throughout the thing, we get him like, kind of like glaring longingly and thinking about his own past. And it's just, this entire problem is completely self-made, especially in the 2018 one. And he's got his dog, who has way more personality in the 2018 one than he does in the other two. And he's more of a character here. And it's just like, it feels so, to me, it felt like more pathetic in this one. Whereas he was just a complete agent of chaos in 2000, and it almost was in his Grinchy nature in the 1966 one. It's not unpacked enough there for you to really think about it. In the 2018 one, it's just like, oh, he was an orphan, so now he wants to steal Christmas. And it's like, okay, I guess.
A couple other interesting things about this one. Angela Lansbury plays the mayor in this, I guess.
I think she has one line.
Yeah. I saw that credit. I was like, hold on. Who is that character again? But yes, the great Angela Lansbury.
I thought she was going to turn out to be a villain because
a twist villain?
There's a discussion of, the mayor wants us to reach new heights with our Christmas celebration, 3 times as big as we've done before. And like, I thought they were going to go the super materialist route from the 2000 version, and that the driver of that was going to be villainous Angela Lansbury, because why would you cast such a big name if she's not going to be a big part? But I mean, she was very old.
Yeah.
I guess it was 2022 that she died. But
this movie also has screaming goat memes, and I hate this. If there's one type of meme that I do not like, it's the screaming goat memes.
I noticed that too. It was it was the thing that was outdated by the time of Ralph Wrecks the Internet in the next year, 2019. So it was slightly fresher in 2018, but yeah.
The whole gang of kids that's like Cindy Lou Who's cohort, they don't do anything. They're not even involved in the final prank. They're just there for the planning stages.
Right. It feels like that's going to be the twist this time. It's like, Cindy Lou Who is part of like a codename Kids Next Door, like secret ops group that takes out the Grinch. And that's how the Grinch gets his comeuppance. But like, I don't know. It doesn't really happen that way.
Dang, I didn't even notice that. You guys are changing my perspective. I'll see where I ultimately land when we write.
I just feel like everything, there's so many, like, it wants to do the whole Cindy Lou Who as a deuteragonist, like in the 2000, but everything about that whole plot line feels half-baked. Yet they're really trying to pad the time, because the whole second act of this movie is just treading water. Nothing really happens. And then we get the fun little heist set up, and then into the heist itself, which I think is, well animated, and we get the Grinch with his gadgets stealing everything, which is a lot of fun. And of course, the conclusion is ultimately the same as it has ever been, but it's in the package of he's not vindictive like 2000, he's not inherently evil like 1966. He's just kind of sad and alone, and he wanted to bring that sad and aloneness to everybody else for, the reasons are textually closer to what 66 is, but that is a children's, it's a short, brief thing there. We don't have time to examine why this guy is doing this, but here we do, and I think it ends up being like he's just an asshole. He's not like a agent of chaos like Jim Carrey's Grinch was.
I suppose. What I read it as was that he was radicalized. I think this is of the times because he was radicalized, because he lived in isolation and he developed these extreme views and he needs to be brought back into the fold.
So are you saying it was prescient for the 2025, the COVID era of people going crazy online?
Yeah, so I think this is perhaps the alt-right Grinch. He's the manosphere Grinch.
There we go.
He's the one who he doesn't have the human connection, and he's just been living on this mountaintop, and so it's like he needs to be.
But he does have a human connection. He has a willing friend. The Kenan Thompson character, whatever his name is, Bartleby or whatever his name
Bricklebaum.
is. Yeah, Bricklebaum.
Bricklebaum will, not Bartleby.
I don't know.
No, I'm just kidding.
But he, it's like if he has every avenue to be happy, they don't seem to even react negatively to him in the town. Like in 2000, he's a Bigfoot. In 1966, we have no concept of the relationship between the Who's and the Grinch, so we don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
But in this one, he just strolls into town and buys stuff, and everybody's like, "How's it going, Mr. Grinch? I'm your friend." It's like what's the Meet the Robinses when you get the internal monologue of he's like, "Everybody hated me." It's like, "How's it going?" What's
Dan,
his name?
have you seen Meet the Robinsons?
No.
You got to watch that. I was thinking of Meet the Robinsons too with Goob.
Yeah, it's like, "How's it going, Goob? You're my buddy, Goob." And meanwhile, his internal monologue is like, "Everybody hated me."
His perspective is that he's hated by everyone. Yes, really good call. I did think the Grinch was a little too mean at the start of this movie. He's like breaking like food jars
Dude,
in the
pickle
grocery
thing?
store
Yeah,
for no
yeah.
reason.
When he bites the pickle and puts it back in the jar and puts it in the other, I'm
Yeah.
like, this guy. The energy was just more miserable, being a miserable ass, like just somebody you don't want to encounter in real life. Whereas the Grinch in 2000, it feels like a separate existence from the Who's. You're not comparing him to normal society interactions. He's like the Mask, or he's like a Bigfoot wandering in there. But in 2018, he's just like an ordinary neighbor. He's like a jerk who only the nicest guy in town is friends with him because he's friends with everybody. He's the Homer Simpson. It's like Ned Flanders is buddies with him, but nobody else wants to be buddies with him because, he's a jerk. Like the ways of fleshing out the Grinch, they took the much less interesting, more boring, and more pathetic ways compared to the 2000, which obviously was very irreverent, but took the more chaotic, interesting, and funny ways of fleshing out the Grinch.
Yeah, a picture is forming for me of where we're all going to land when we ultimately rate.
Well, maybe that is our moment. Was there anything else you wanted to say about it before we wrapped?
I remember I do have my Christmas surprise, but we can do that after we rate, though.
My last thing I want to say is that the climactic moment when the sled is going over the precipice, it's been a little bit different in every version. Mm-hmm. Here, this is, the epic animated treatment. It's like, this is we got hundreds of millions of dollars in the compute. That's what they say these days with AI, right? Is you got your compute. That's how many computers you have dedicated to a task. I think that's kind of a silly word. But the mountain comes apart. It's like, not just does the sled actually go over the lip, and the Grinch goes over the lip, and the whole mountain falls apart. And then what pulls it back over the edge is Fred shows up, and his family shows up, and they pull the cart back over the lip.
And then Max,
Fred. I've been
like,
wondering, where's Fred?
All the
Fred's
characters
back.
have been asking, where's Fred? Then Max ultimately is the one who does the final little tug, and that's fine. And I know you said you liked it, but I think part of the Grinch, like the core points of the Grinch story is him saving the gifts as they're about to go over the ledge.
Right, the 10 Grinches plus 2. But
right.
What I thought was going to happen was it wasn't going to be just Fred and the family. I thought it was going to be the whole herd of reindeer that we saw. Because the whole mountain's coming down. I thought the whole enormous herd was going to hold the mountain back and just, really be a visual representation that it takes a village.
I mean, I think the 2000 is a much worse violation of the Grinch spirit.
I agree, but the reason there's multiple reasons I came down so differently, and I think one of the biggest reason is like my feeling of the intention, and that I don't know if the intention of the 2018 was to do so many curveballs or so many misses on the original Grinch spirit, whereas the 2001 clearly was going for something just a complete out there. And so as a result of that, I'm less offended by the way that the the sort of the core Grinch story is subverted.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm offended. I don't think anything in 2018 is particularly offensive. I think that's kind of the problem. Is like it's the path of least resistance for turning it into a feature length.
So like last week from Brendan Klein, I learned the word anodyne. It's so anodyne, which means deliberately inoffensive.
Yeah, and the Fred offends me, I would say. And
No,
so
dude,
does
what's wrong with Fred? You know what?
and so does him not getting stuck in the chimney. Like there's small things that it's like this should probably happen because it's like easy and it's part of the text. And it's just one of those things. The other thing is the conclusion of this one is like tacked on. Like he doesn't have a prior relationship with Cindy Lou Who, really. I mean, he has that one encounter when he's the Santa, but that's the only encounter he has with Cindy Lou Who besides when she runs into him on her snow tube. And she's like, hey, come join our feast because it's Christmas. I was like, these two characters have spoken one time, really. Like, it didn't really land the same way that her... Because obviously the entirety of 2000 builds up this connection between Cindy Lou Who and the Grinch. But the Cindy Lou Who plotline and the Grinch plotline are basically separate in 2018. So tying them together right at the end there, I don't know if it really works for me.
What Will's saying is that Fred should have taken the Cindy Lou Who role.
Honestly, have Max
Justice
drag him down.
for Fred.
Or what's the point of the Keenan character if he's not going to be the one? He's the one who's supposed to be the Grinch's friend. Or at least have him there with him to bring it down. It's like, come on, we got to have... The Keenan character was completely superfluous as well.
Justice for Bricklebomb.
Bricklebomb, come on. He's got to have a bigger role in this story. Also, I did do a brief rewrite of this story that I think would go be a little bit more of what they want while still preserving the sort of milquetoast.
All right, go for it.
All right. Make Cindy Lou Who's mom explicitly a retail worker. And as a result, she spends more time working around the holiday season. And so Cindy Lou Who also does not like Christmas. And then we have two options there. Either have her work together with the Grinch to steal Christmas, or have them some kind of have them have more parallel paths where they have some meeting where she conveys her dislike of Christmas to the Grinch, which perhaps inspires him or establishes their bond. And he agrees with her, though ultimately his dislike ends up being more shallow than hers. And when he learns the meaning of Christmas is commercialism, he basically becomes a babysitter or something for Cindy Lou Who there. And the Grinch can still be bitter, but, we have a little bit more reason for their bond rather than this vague, I want a dad type, like, energy that is not firmly established in the text. So I don't know if her mom is explicitly a retail worker. I think you make it that. And then I think you make Cindy Lou Who also dislike Christmas.
And then Fred gets married to Cindy Lou Who's
Exactly.
mom.
We need more Fred. The children are craving more Fred.
Or maybe
In fact,
Bricklebomb does.
why is this movie even called The Grinch?
How Fred stole Christmas.
How Fred saved Christmas.
Have you guys seen the TV special of Olive the Other Reindeer from 1999?
So believe it or not, one of the picture books I read to Dan, two of the picture books I read were How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and the other one was Olive the Other Reindeer. I read that to his daughters when they were going to bed tonight.
Nice.
No, I haven't seen it, but I've read the book.
Okay, well, I haven't read the book, but I've seen the special, which was done by the Simpsons team, Matt Groening, and the villain in the story is voiced by Dan Castellaneta as an angry postman who is basically yelling Homer, and the postman is very put upon because mailmen have to carry a lot of extra weight at Christmas. And I just, one of my favorite Christmas villains. I always love a good Christmas antagonist, so.
Have you seen the movie Klaus? The animated movie? Because that's a very Christmas postman movie.
I need to watch that one.
It's pretty good. I really like the animation style. And when I watched it, I was like, oh, that was better than I expected. I wouldn't call it amazing or anything like that, but it's pretty fun.
I've heard good things. Got an Oscar nom.
Yeah.
All right, shall we rate? And then Will has a surprise for us.
Yeah, it's actually a two-part surprise.
All right. Don't know what this is, but he's been saying all week he's got a Christmas surprise for us.
He's been Grinch maxing.
I have been. I've been doing my Grinchiest.
Is It Good as our signature section where we each give the movies a rating on our 8-point goodness scale, ranging from very not good, which is a 1 out of 8, to our masterpiece rating, toward a good, which is an 8 out of 8. Brian is the 1966 How the Grinch Stole Christmas special by Chuck Jones, written by Dr. Seuss, and all the other credits that we've already attributed to it, good.
So I almost can't overstate how much I like the original Grinch. I love the 1966 Grinch special. I'm going to give it an 8. Tour de good, masterpiece. It's so well put together. It's a well-oiled machine that in 23 minutes, I think if you take anything out of it, it detracts from it. I caught it on TV this year, and they had carved out like 90 seconds of runtime to fit more commercials. And they didn't even cut any words. It's just like they trimmed things out in between the words to move it along a little faster. It just felt so choppy and clunky when they did that. It's like the little bit of the Grinch pushing Max off of him when he clings onto him on the sled, or like the little horn solo that he plays coming down the mountain. And it's like every little piece of this, and maybe it's just that I watched it so many times, is burned into my brain, but it kind of needs to be just so, because everything adds to the charm, adds to the effectiveness. I love all the music bits. Like, it's not just "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch." It's also Fahu Forays, but it's also like the da na 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 ba 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 na 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 ba 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 when the sled's moving along. It's like all the little leitmotifs have to be there, and really, really like it.
So I'm not really going to disagree with anything Brian said, because I think this is a really outstanding special, a terrific short film. It just, I really like how it, like Brian said, it distills it down to exactly what it needs to be, in part because the original book is just so elegant in just capturing what is needed for the story, no more and no less, and conveying that in this special works so well, and all the moments are good, and the animation is just off the charts, the music, the voice acting, the flavor. And yet I've always had this at a 4.5 star, and I can't really say why. Sometimes there's like maybe a little bit of the middle stretch where he's stealing stuff feels just a smidge repetitive and long for what it is, but I don't know. I mean, I'm like, and I've also kind of done that just as a point of contrast for Charlie Brown Christmas special, which I like even more than this. I think hits on a sort of ineffable feeling that really I find just core to how I view the world in a way that Grinch is almost there. But again, I absolutely love it. I can give it pretty much the highest recommendation possible. I'm going to give it a 7, exceptionally good, just on the cusp of an 8 out of 8 masterpiece, tour de good. I mean, I watch it literally every year, and there's only like 4 things that I watch literally every year, and this is one of them. So I absolutely adore this, and it's up there all time for me. I guess maybe not quite as much as Brian, but pretty much there, honestly, for me. So what about you, Will?
I am basically echoing what both of you say, where I think it is amazing and, of course, a classic. And I'm going to echo what Brian said about the music. I think the score is phenomenal, and you get all these different just like bits of the orchestra playing, and the all-time diss track of "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch" is fantastic. The narration is wonderful. I mean, it's a classic for a reason, right? It's a little bit visually garish at times, with you called out these really like bright colors, and you get these really strongly colored backgrounds that it's simplistic maybe at points, and then it's not, and you get the whole full Seussian tableau on display where you've got all these like sketchy characters doing like goofy little things with their instruments and stuff like that. And it's got this real heartwarming narration from Boris Karloff, and you've got all the score is iconic as well. There's not much more you can do with the 30-minute special than what gets done here. I think it lacks, as Dan said, a little bit of the heft of a Charlie Brown Christmas, but it's established itself in the Christmas canon for a reason. So I'm going to be right there with Brian and also give it a tour de good 8 out of 8 rating.
Masterpiece rating. One zag, I love "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch," but I think it's gotten overplayed, and I don't like hearing it on the radio. It's like, it's not like a driving down the road type of song for me. But
Yeah, the one they should be spinning is "Hang Pantukas from the ceiling, pile pampunas on the floor."
There is another vocal track right at the beginning of the special, and I can't not. It's not the Fahu Dores or Fahu Fores, Dahu Dores. I forget what it is.
I think it's the one that I'm saying with the trim every blessed needle of the blessed Christmas tree. Christmas comes tomorrow from you to me.
Yeah. That one's kind of fun, and I always forget about it, and then I watch it again. And I was like, oh yeah, there's another song right here.
Yeah, a really special one. Let's move on to one that I would also call special. 2000s. Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, directed by Ron Howard. Brian, is it good?
I have feelings all over the place about this movie. It's such a strange film. It's like, I never expected a Grinch that was this sexually charged and just edgy. It does feel like something that came from 2000. Like, this is the X Games of the Grinch. And like the PlayStation 1 of the Grinch. And like you could picture it like encased in translucent colored plastic. That's
Green.
That's the era of tech. And I had a positive experience when I finally watched it last year of like honestly being kind of afraid of it. That this would tarnish the legacy of something I loved so much and that was so wholesome and authentic. And that this was clearly like a sharp left turn of just like, let's try to see what else we can do with this. And you do have to add something if you're trying to turn such a short story into a feature. And so I'm kind of wary of that as an enterprise. It's like, do you need to do that? Our discussion has maybe raised it a little bit for me. I came in ready to give this a 3. I think it lands at a low 4 for me, a good-ish, because I love the makeup. Like, I have a respect for the craft of this, and this was a lot of work to do, and they didn't skimp. It's like they worked hard on the production design, on the makeup especially, which deserved the Oscar, but also like the acting performances and even the directing. It's like there was thought put into the camera angles, and like everything that's here I think was intentional. As off the wall as it is, it meant to be off the wall. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to land at a 4, a good-ish. Like, I'm kind of glad this exists, but I'm also glad that I waited to watch it. I wouldn't recommend it for kids.
So, for me, this one benefits in contrast to the 2018 one because it shows me that Grinch... the story of Grinch by itself, it shouldn't be stretched out to feature length. If you're going to stretch it out to feature length, you have to have like a full-on freak out and go like do a left turn every single time you feel like you're headed in the right direction. And like you're doing the common sense thing, just do something that's weirder than that and askew from that and give it this kooky Jim Carrey off the walls, almost like expressionistic energy. That's just like kind of insane. I mean, I was really struck with We Used to Be a Country energy when I was watching this time. And I really liked the metaphor that it's the ugly sweater of movies. It's like if you're going to take a beloved property and you're going to make it into something feature length, don't just do like a watered down, stretched out version of it. Like make it a statement. Make it a thing that you can be pulling 30-second clips out and be like, so what's going on here? Well, something's going on here, but let's look at what's going on here. And like you could pull almost any 30-second clip out of this movie and have it be that. And I kind of like that it's ugly, that it sears your eyeballs. To me, that feels almost like in the spirit of the original. Like it's so brightly colored and like full of like little flourishes and weird high kinetic energy stuff that Chuck Jones has done. It feels kind of in the spirit of that in some ways. And I mean, obviously it's never ever going to be the 66 one, which is just essentially perfect and untouchable and just one of the distillations of Christmas spirit. But I'm glad it's there. Like Brian, I'm glad it exists. I mean, I don't really even disagree with anything Brian said. I'm just going to there's no one right rating for it, but I'm just going to give it like a soft, good 5 out of 8 for me on How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It's like, Yeah, I don't know. I almost feel like I want to go and watch it again now and just like think a little bit more about like every single thing that's in it and how they made it and why someone thought like we're not only going to do this, but this is the specific way we're going to do this, and just all the stuff that's there that's like that. And it's physical, real things where they did it, you know? So that's it for me. What about you, Will?
Yeah, I mean, this movie is wild. It's ugly. It's really over the top, but it's also hilarious. I think the writing is really funny. The acting is really well done. And it feels like an adult spoof of The Grinch rather than just a straight retelling of it, which weirdly, in the same way Dan said the ugliness fits the Dr. Seuss sort of aesthetic, especially when you transfer it to this live action thing. I think the sort of adult spoof also fits the vibes of the transposing a Dr. Seuss book into a live action feature length film. Carrey really goes lights out with this performance, and he goes over the top. And, you know, was every choice perfect? I don't know, but you also have him like mugging at a dog who's as Ron Howard with the hat on was with the dog is like knocks his nose off and he says, "It's brilliant." Like, oh, there's so many of these like acting decisions where clearly we're telling Jim Carrey to go as far as he wanted, and then you keep going and you keep going. And it works for me. Is it as good as the 66 original? Obviously not. But I think I would recommend this to anybody who's looking for a weird Christmas movie to watch if they haven't seen it, because it has just such vibrant energy, and it's so, I think it's addictive to watch. Like, this is not the type of movie you turn off halfway through, I think, just because it has so much energy as you're going through it. And it's not too long, and I think for the most part it earns its runtime. Obviously, most of that is stretching out what is ultimately a very short children's book, but you know, those stretch outs, as Dan said, were just complete like curveballs. It's just you keep veering, you keep doing something more and more ridiculous. And really, I think it's one of my Christmas favorites. I'm going to give it a pretty solid 6 here, which is very good, right? I like this movie a lot, and I'm probably more likely to turn it on if I want to watch a movie at Christmas that's not necessarily like a Christmas cheer movie. It's no It's a Wonderful Life. I'm not going to turn it on when I want that vibe. I'm not going to turn it on when I want the 1966 one or a Charlie Brown Christmas vibe. But if I want a Christmas movie that's going to keep me interested for an hour and 40 minutes, this is one of the first ones that I'm going to go to.
I'm glad you called out the script too, because I really think they packed it full of jokes and like gags and little flourishes, story bits in there, so that it doesn't really feel padded. It feels kind of fleshed out. But I guess that brings us to the 2018 film, which I think is just called The Grinch, or Dr. Seuss's The Grinch. Brian, is this Illumination Entertainment? Is it Illumination? Is that right? Illumination something? I think they're just Illumination now.
Illumination!
Is this Illumination film good?
So what I've found is that my ratings can vary with repeated watches and time. So maybe this is going to change. Because if you'd asked me last year after I watched the Jim Carrey one for the first time, I would have given it a pretty solid 5. Because I did find myself frequently laughing. This time I didn't laugh as much. And more of the rough edges stuck out to me. But this one I was charmed by in my initial watch. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 8, a good. I really admired the textures of everything, like the lighting of the animation, just everything had a vivacity to it. The eyes of the characters had a gleam, and like the way that the lights on the Christmas trees looked, and especially the snow. Like the digging in the snow, the falling of the snow, it all looked good. And like that was an accomplishment. I think the mission that they went in when they made this one was, okay, let's see if we can make a feature Grinch that isn't a weird, like off-puttingly edgy treatment. Can we do that? And I think they, had a modest success with that goal. I think this is closer to the spirit of the original, but maybe there is some treading water. There was nothing here that I just like adamantly didn't like, but
Fred.
I liked Fred. I thought Fred got across the message that this one had, which was, I thought specifically, gotta embrace community. And maybe that's a simplistic message, but I thought it worked. So I'm gonna give it a 5. Good. Like, I'm still gonna return to the short and sweet original, and what I learned in this exercise of watching all these Grinches is so much is still beholden to the original. It's like, gotta have Your Mean One, Mr. Grinch. Gotta have Fahu Forace in there somewhere. And you can't break away from it totally. So, but breaking positive for me.
So for me, the obvious comparison point is, I mean, in addition to the other Grinches, is the Lorax. And I've kind of already brought this up a couple times, but I think the Lorax, I ended up quite liking. I either gave a 5 or a 6.
And I gave the Lorax a 7, so didn't like it as much as the Lorax.
And to me, there's two things that are different. I actually think Grinch is better animated and better made in some ways, but the Lorax, one, it's got the banging soundtrack, and two, I'm not comparing it to a property that is so internalized because I've watched it every year, you know? I mean, obviously I know the Lorax book, but it's just, it doesn't already have the same sort of canonical feeling that the Grinch does for me. And I think those made me a little more sour on it. Like, I feel like probably objectively, if this were a different story, I would probably give it a 4, a good-ish, because it's got what the Illumination thing does, where it feels like it flattens the story a little bit with like a little bit more commotion and chases and action, but it still kind of has like a basically understandable and competent narrative, like with discernible motivations. It's very down the middle and like sanded down. But because I'm comparing it, where I said for the 2000, like if you're going to take something and make a feature length, just go balls to the walls with it. This doesn't do that. And as a result, it ends up feeling just watered down and kind of weak. And I don't know, like not offensively bad. Like I don't get angry at it. I just kind of be like, oh, I guess there's our buddy Bricklebaum. Okay, cool. Oh, well, I guess he's stealing Christmas now. I mean, probably not aided by the fact that I watched 3 Grinches in 2 days or 3 days or something. And so this was the last one I watched, and so it started to feel a little repetitive. But I'm just going to give it a 3 and not good, mainly out of a shrug towards it, but like a slightly bitter and resentful shrug, but not outright dislike for it. And I wouldn't be surprised if I was slightly warmer on it again if I watched it again. But what about you, Will?
I think you can tell from the discussion that I am ultimately not going to land too positively on this one either. I think it looks good, and it has a serviceable soundtrack. But that's about all the compliments I can give to it. I'm glad Brian pointed out that the snow looked really good. There were a couple points in the movie where I was like, that looks like real snow. It looks great. And I think it sounds good. Everything's well animated, well mixed. And the voice acting, even though I'm still confused why you cast Benedict Cumberbatch and then have him talk as an American, the voice acting was fine for the most part. Nobody really took me out of it, especially from the leads. But like the biggest sin is that it's ultimately bland, and especially like Dan and Brian, I'd probably come off watching the other Grinches, and you can say that neither the 1966 nor the 2001 is bland. And this one I just felt very little when we got to the conclusion. I didn't feel like Cindy Lou Who's narrative had any emotional heft in its imprecision, and the Grinch is like, the point of the Grinch is the Grinch, right? He's a bitter, angry troll who learns the meaning of Christmas. With this one,
Are you a guy?
Yeah, he's a green gorilla, for God's sake. He doesn't wear green pants. Now, his portrayal here is just like a lonely dude, except he's not that lonely because he's got his loving dog, and he's got Fred, and he's got Brinklebaum. What's his name? Bricklebaum in the town, and he can just walk into town and go grocery shopping. It doesn't feel like the Grinch to me, and that's, I think, ultimately what left me feeling like I'm not mad at it per se. I'm just kind of exasperated with it. I'm like, if you're going to make a Grinch movie, then make it a Grinch movie. Don't make it a movie about a lonely guy in a mountain. It just feels like you're making a different sort of story entirely with the dressing of the Grinch. And then I think the narration was just like not good Pharrell doesn't have a voice of a narrator, and also it's just like it was just hammering home these really obvious themes over and over again. That said, it looks good enough. I'm not going to give it a 2 or a 1. I'm going to land on just a low 3 there, just because, like I said, it looks good. I don't know if I'm ever going to watch it again or ever turn it on, or I'm not going to, I'm more likely to go to about 100 other Christmas movies before I go to this one. But it's there, and it's fine, and it looks good, and it's an Illumination animated project. So for that, it's fine. Great. 3. What is it? Not good?
3 is not good.
There you go. Not good.
I also gave the Illumination Super Mario Brothers movie an 8, so
Oh, I hate that
Whoa,
movie.
really?
I may have a
Oh my
bias.
gosh.
I would give that movie probably a similar score to what I gave this one. That one, it has less of a plot than this one. But my favorite part, of course, is the Kong Army, everybody's favorite Mario thing.
They're building a cinematic universe, and we're gonna return to
Except
it.
they already did way too much stuff in the first one. Anyway, all right. Is it time now for my...
Oh, yes, the Christmas
my
surprise.
Christmas surprise. All right, I have written a story, and a familiar story perhaps, but a little bit different. It is called How the Grood Stole a Christmas Carol. And here it goes. Every good down in Goodsville thought A Christmas Carol rocked, but the Grood, who lived just north of Goodsville, rated it 1 star on Letterboxd. The Grood hated Christmas movies, all Christmas flicks. Now please don't ask why, they just make him sick. It could be he hated the schmaltzy good cheer, it could be an abnormal hatred of reindeer. But I think that the cause of his ill impressions may be a bad case of seasonal depression. Whatever the reason, his hates or his mood, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the goods, staring down from his cave with a sour, groody frown at the Christmas Carol watchers below in the town. For he knew every good down in all of Good's nation was busy now watching their favorite Dickens adaptation. And they're watching the Muppets, he growled in dismay. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's only 1 sleep away. Then he sneered, I must find some way to stop these ghosts from coming. For that night he knew in the dark winter cold, 3 ghosts would come, or possibly 4. And then, oh, the Christmas cheer. That's one thing he hated, Christmas cheer. Cheer, cheer, cheer. Then the goods, Dan and Brian, would sit down for a pod, and they'd rate, and they'd rate, and they'd rate. They would rate the old classics, each Scrooge with his quirks, and speculate on the nature of his work. And then they'd do something he liked not one bit. Every good down in Goodsville, each with their list, would sit close together and read off the directions. And now it's time for our signature section. Is it good? Is it good? Is it good? Good, good, good. And the more the Grood thought of this Goods Christmas pod, the more the Grood thought, I must stop this, by God. Why, for 236 episodes I've put up with it now. I must stop the goods from rating. But how? Then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Grood got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, the Grood laughed in his throat. And he made a quick Victorian hat and a coat. And he chuckled and clucked. What a great Groody move. With this coat and this hat, I look just like old Scrooge. All I need is a Cratchit. And the Grood looked around. But since Cratchits were scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grood? No, the Grood simply said. If I can't find a Bob Cratchit, I'll make one instead. So he called up an actor who came by quite spryly. Surprise! Bob Cratchit, played by John C. Reilly. Then he grabbed his old mic and began to speak. With a ramshackle setup came a scathing critique. Then the Grood hit play for the theme song musicians, and he growled, let's see them try to put themselves in position. All the airways were dark, no noise in the air. All the goods were all thinking of old Scrooge's despair. When he came to the first adaptation of the night, this is version number 1, the old Groody Scrooge hissed, and he began to ramble about opportunities missed. Then he badmouthed the writing, a rather dull script. What Dickens could do, most were ill-equipped. He praised it only once in a backhanded sort of way. Then he said, but even that is really just okay. When he came to the actors, how Scrooge was portrayed, I think, the Grood grinned, the old man never found his way. Then he insulted Cratchit and poor Tiny Tim. I hardly felt bad the boy's fate is so grim. Bad music, bad casting, poor film direction, terrible cinematography upon any inspection. And he listed his grievances, the Grood very raw, and he prepared his one final coup de grace. Really, I think the issue at hand is not with the movie, it's so much more grand. When it comes down to it, despite all of its glory, A Christmas Carol is simply not a good story. And now, thought the Grood, I will give it a rating. And after all that he'd said, there was not much debating. Extremely not good. Then came a noise of dissent. He checked the Good's Discord and saw messages sent. Little Mitchy, good dude, a friend of the pod, spotted the Grood's bad faith words, thought he might be a fraud. He'd logged the same film and thought it to be grand. And he messaged and said, "What's with the harsh review, man? Why are you bad-mouthing Dickens? Why?" But you know, that old Grood was so smart and so slick. He thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. "Why, my poor little listener," the fake Scrooge gave a spin. "You see, this is just my opinion. So I'm writing a review for all to see. It's not my fault I don't like it. You can't blame me." And his fib fooled poor Mitch, who thought that was enough. And he went back to old episodes, still catching up. And when he saw that the Discord was clear, the Grood thought his victory was really quite near. And the last thing he said of the poor Victorian writer was that the story could have been a little bit tighter. Of the tale, he left none of the wonder or mirth, and the one tiny thing that he found to give praise was a note that had left him with only mild malaise. Then he did the same thing to many film versions, with no words of kindness for Scrooge's conversion. It was 1:15 dawn, all the good still asleep, all the good still a snooze, when he finished his work. All in all, he thought he sounded quite the jerk. And then, with a flourish of old Groodish glee, he put his mock podcast on Podbean to play. He waited to see what the listeners would say. "Pooh-pooh to the goods," he was Groodishly mumbling. "They're finding out now that no good rating is coming. They're just tuning in. I know just what they'll hear. Their comments will have no Christmas cheer. Then the goods down in Goodsville will cry, 'Boo-hoo!' That is a comment," grinned the Grood, "that I simply must hear." So he scrolled, and the Grood went to the comment section. And he did see a bit of the audience's reflection. It started quite small, and then it got more frequent. But the comments weren't mad. Why, they were actually decent. It couldn't be so. That had to be nonsense. He stared down at Goodsville. The Grood popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every good down in Goodsville, the tall and the small, was watching A Christmas Carol, with no care for the flaws. He hadn't stopped the Scrooge from changing. The old man had, and adaptations, both the good and the bad. It came with a turkey. It came with new kindness. It came with holiday cheer in the finest. And the Grood, with his Grood mouth frowning so steep, stood wondering why. Is the story actually so deep? Does it say something about us, about you and me? About a different way we should all be? And he wondered 3 hours till he could wonder no more. Then the Grood thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe A Christmas Carol, he thought, isn't about the review. Maybe, in A Christmas Carol, we can learn something new. And what happened then? Well, in Goodsville they say that the Grood's Is It Good rating rose 3 points that day. And the minute he realized the errors of his ways, he came to the Discord. He just wanted to say that perhaps he was missing out on all of the fun. And he himself, the Grood, said, "God bless us, every one."
A wonderful piece of writing which will go down in Good's lore.
Yes. Great fan fiction. You got to post it on fanfiction.net under the goods tab.
Our first of hopefully many fan fictions. The Grood could be our recurring villain here.
The Grood, yes. Hold on, I have something else, Dan. And it is a video. I don't know if you want to play it on your computer.
Okay. Video.mp4.
Now turn up the volume.
Hey, Dan. It's Jonathan. Jonathan Sheck. It's Jimmy. You know, James Matterly III. It's Jimmy from the Herdsman. You know, Jimmy and the Wonders. The Wonders? Number Wonders? Neaters. Captain Geach and the Shrimp Shack Shooters. Oh, come on. You know, obviously you've heard Herdsman? Never mind. Well, your brother Will thought it would be nice if I wished you a Merry Christmas. You and the goods. Merry Christmas. Because there comes a day in everyone's life when the dream that you dream becomes that thing you do. And that's the thing you're doing. This podcast sounds awesome. Have me on it. Let me know. And also, I wanted to let you know that your brother, he loves you very much. And he doesn't want you to quit on your dreams. Because that's what Jimmy was. He was a dreamer. Everyone thinks he was just a jerk. But he was a dreamer. He's the one that made it all happen, right? So we need a little bit of dreamer in all of us. And if you got to be a little bit of a jerk, it happens, right? Well, Merry Christmas to you. All the best. God bless.
Awesome. That's incredible.
Did you recognize who that was, Brian?
I instantly did, but
Yeah.
Well,
I'm a
he
weirdo.
explained himself, so yes, I picked up as it went.
Jonathan Check from That Thing You Do, playing Jimmy
With a Christmas message.
for the goods and for me.
Yeah.
Wow. I've tweeted with him once or twice, but I asked him before our That Thing You Do episode what his favorite line from the movie was, and he said, I quit, Mr. White, which he of course just referenced here, but
Yeah, so this goes back a couple of years, because if you recall, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I tried to get a Jansen Panettiere cameo Christmas message, and it didn't go through, and I said, I might as well follow up on that because I'm doing the Christmas episode. And so for this time, I checked if Tom Everett Scott was on Cameo, and he was not. And then I checked if, what's Lenny's name again?
I'm very
Zahn?
tired. Yes,
Yeah, Steve Zahn. Steve Zahn.
Zahn.
And he wasn't there either. So Jimmy. I also checked if John C. Reilly was there. 'Cause I figured he would have been good. But he was not there either. So
Okay.
unfortunately, I think
that might have
Jimmy.
been expensive, but
I think this was a pretty good message.
No,
so
this
I
is
was very
good.
Satisfied.
He's kind of the one there who's like he's actually still acting. He's in some other show now.
I feel like Blue Ridge or something.
But he was kind of like the quirkiest casting of that movie, and so I'm glad that he's embraced it. He sometimes tweets pictures of himself, like once every couple of years he'll get lunch with Tom Hanks. That would have been a get if you'd gotten Tom Hanks.
If only. No, I don't think. I did check if he was on Cameo. He's not, but I would not.
Like $4,000.
I'm not going to pay
for
$3,000
an 8-second cameo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a mixed bag experience with Cameo. I tried to get Henry's Kitchen, Henry, come on our podcast, but he stood me up. I paid for the cameo, and he never sent it, so...
Yeah, that's what happened with Jansen for me. So this one, it was like less than an hour or two later he had recorded it and sent it. So
Well, I'm honored. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
Merry
I've had one of the
Christmas.
wonders wish me a Merry Christmas and tell me that my podcast sounds cool.
Yeah.
So he did say he would come on our podcast.
Well,
so.
he said, have me on.
Have me
Let
on.
me know. You can tweet at him again and say, hey, my brother got me, and he'll probably make the connection mentally, because I don't think... Because it was like 8 left or something like that when I bought it, so who knows? It might be worth reaching out, just be like, hey, thanks for the cameo, see if you get a response. Well, either way, that was the Christmas surprise, parts 1 and parts deuce.
And they were both wonderful ones. So that's a grand way to send out 2025.
Yes, thank you for all your time and creativity and investment in the program. We know that you're fan numero uno.
Oh, yeah, it's been fun following, and obviously I've been on a multitude of times. And I like watching movies, and you guys certainly exposed me to new movies. And in conclusion, everybody go watch the 2000 Grinch movie, because that movie is fucking wild.
Where's Fred? That's what I'll be watching.
Yeah, you know
every
what?
time.
They should remake it, because I in the Wikipedia section it said that Jim Carrey was open to making a sequel as long as he can mocap, that he doesn't have to do the makeup again. And I think they should, and it should be about Fred, though. The Grinch's journey to find Fred.
And I'll drop the article in the Discord of... Because I just learned that story of Jim being, like, tortured by the makeup.
Apparently he had like an ex-special forces torture expert come and talk to him about how to deal with it.
Yeah,
because it was so bad.
After one day of shooting, he called the director and the producer into his trailer and said, look, you can take all my money back. I cannot be the Grinch anymore.
It took one day of being the Grinch for him to no longer want to be the Grinch.
To break.
And that was when he realized that he was the Grinch all along.
Well, Merry Bricklebaum to all of you out there.
Merry Grinchmas.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Grinch, for... Oh, Will, you shared an anecdote off air about how he introduces himself as Grinch, and then Cindy Lou Who calls him the Grinch.
Yeah.
So Cindy Lou Who introduces the.
I think at the end of the 2018 one, when she's going up to knock on the door, she's like, I'm Cindy Lou Who, and he's like, I'm Grinch. And then later on at the party, she's like, hey, Aunt Betsy or whatever, this is the Grinch. And it's like, who? Why is he the Grinch? Where did that come from?
But that made me laugh because Katie's brother has always called me the Dan. Like, is the Dan coming over for dinner tonight? Like back when we were dating, and now he still calls me the Dan sometimes.
And then
so.
do we already talk about this where there's like, is Grinch his occupation, his name, or his title?
I think I mentioned that one already, but yes. All right. Merry Christmas, listeners. Happy New Year. And thank you, Will. Thank you, Brian.